Good evening, everybody. I want to thank everybody coming out this November 21st. So I'm going to call this regular meeting of the City Council to order. At this time, do we have invocation? We don't? Okay. Councilman Robinson, would you lead us, please, in the invocation tonight?
God, we just thank you for this evening, for this opportunity to come together as a community and focus on the issues that are of importance to each and every one of us. Just ask that you grant us wisdom and guidance as we make decisions this evening. Help us to do so in a harmonious way, expressing our opinions passionately, but not in any way degrading or denigrating each other, but only trying to work toward consensus to do what the people have asked us to do. I ask all these things in your name. Amen.
And pledge allegiance would be also by Councilman Robinson.
If you'd rise and face the flag. Right hand over your heart. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
And normally at this time we would have a student from El Toro High School give us an update of what's going on at El Toro. I will give a little bit of an update. El Toro football, the Chargers are doing exceeding well. They're in CIF playoffs. They've won their first two CIF playoff games, and they played Lompoc last week, which was 9-0. Lompoc came down from Central California and was probably favored, but El Toro came out to play, and they beat them handedly. This week, we travel up towards Pasadena on Friday night, and I think that they have a good shot of going a little bit farther. So they always do exceedingly above our expectation because they're overachievers. But I would like to ask a motion for presentations. Oh, and one more thing. El Toro Chargers are in the midst of a food drive for the needy of South Orange County. So if you see them in front of Ralph's or Stater Brothers or the new grocery outlet, please drop a can or two of food into their bucket and help them out. They're shooting for 115,000 cans of food for the needy of South Orange County this holiday season. Last year, their target was 105. They exceeded that by 2,000. They hit 107. This year, I said, why you guys couldn't make it easy? Just go shoot for 110. But they shot for 115. So they're, like I said, they're overachievers. And so they always make us proud. So as always, go Chargers. And with that, we'll move to presentation.
I'll move.
Second.
That motion passes unanimously. This agenda item 1, recognition of 2017 Leadership Academy graduates, submitted by City Clerk. Mayor and Council, I'm pleased to present our 18th Academy. These are the graduates of that Academy. We're also celebrating tonight a special recognition of our 350th graduate, so that will be a surprise. This is an 8-week program where participants come and they listen to presentations from the various departments to learn about the workings of city government and hopefully can be better informed and go out with their friends and neighbors and inform them of what's happening here at City Hall. So if you'd join me at the podium, we can present the certificates. So when I call your name, if you would come up and we'll take a picture with you individually with the mayor, and then we're going to have you come in through here. We're going to take a group class photo with the whole council when we're done. So don't run back to your seats. Our first is Richard Eng. Alan Cowie. And I believe actually Alan is unable to make it tonight. Conrad Conradson. Myrna Dillon. Kristen Eldred. Kayla Francis. Emily Keating. Oh, congratulations. Tim Colbo, and I know he can't make it, but Oh, you did actually. That's right. Your son was. Ann Law. Jason Leland. Jason's actually a student at El Toro High School, and he has an interest in community development, city planning, so we might be seeing him as a future employee of Lake Forest. Edith Logue. Let's see Edith tonight. Blanca O'Connor. No. Jean O'Donohue. Tim O'Neill. Mila O'Neill. I think it's not here either. I think they're celebrating the holiday early. Andrew Sibley. Terry Sibley. And Terry has the honor of being our 350th graduate of the Lake Forest Leadership Academy. And before you go, Terry, wait, we have special stuff.
All right.
It's actually when you open up the lawn chair, but it has Lake Forest on it.
Oh, nice.
And then
The camel.
a special
Turkey.
all your news.
Can I get one more?
Amy Shee. You were hoping for the pin. They're still in order. Wendy Swanson.
And you know, Wendy serves on our senior citizen, what is it, senior? They're stars. And they're the white vans you see driving through the parking lots, and I love seeing them because they're the ones checking for the handicap.
Yuri Tolentino. Roxana Torres. Holly Turner. Steve Valencia? I don't think I see him. Crystal Ventura? Yay! And Jing Yang? No. We'll make sure that they get their certificates. If we could have the rest of the council come down, it'd be great to take a picture with everyone. It's like Little League. You got to have 2 rows. You know. Exactly. Sure. I know, right? Like paparazzi here.
We have to get closer for the podium.
There we go.
All right. Everybody, a little smile.
Great picture. 1, 2, 3. I'll take one more. You don't mind? 1, 2, 3.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, I'm so glad you enjoyed it.
And Academy graduates, one more time, on behalf of the City of Lake Forest and the council, we thank you for taking the time to learn more about our great city. We got a lot of great things going on in the city. You guys got to see that firsthand, and so thank you for taking the time to learn more about our wonderful city. So thank you so much. Happy holidays and happy Thanksgiving to you all. Thank you.
Just to let you know, I've asked the rest of the council, I've asked Stephanie and Deborah to look into whether or not we could have a more advanced leadership academy for people wanting to get ready for commissions and things like that. So they're going to do a survey and get back to us in the near future.
Great. So at this time, it brings us to public comments. Members of the public may address the City Council regarding any items within the subject matter of the City of Lake Forest. No action may be taken on items not listed on the agenda unless authorized by law. Comments shall be limited to 3 minutes per person with an overall time limit of 30 minutes for the public comment portion of the agenda. Any person wishing to address the City Council on any matter, whether or not it appears on the agenda, is requested to complete a blue form over at the side here. It's available, and turn it into Carlo here. When you are called to speak, you'll have 3 lights, the first being green, then with 1 minute left, the light will turn yellow, and when the light turns red, that your time has expired. At that time, your public comment period has ended, and we request that you conclude your comments and save any future general comments for future meetings. Madam Clerk, have we had anybody from the public?
Yes, Your Honor. Carolee Darnell, followed by Tom Cagley.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Thank you for having me this evening. My name is Carolee Darnell, and I'm with Southern California Edison. I wanted to come and introduce myself as your new public affairs rep for the City of Lake Forest. I know for some period of time, the City of Lake Forest was being handled by someone that was working out of Rosemead, but I am here. I am in Orange County. I'm based right out of the Santa Ana Service Center, and I cover all of South Orange County from Irvine all the way down to the San Diego border. So if you have any Edison issues or you have any questions, feel free to give me a call. I've left enough copies of my card with your city clerk that each of you can have one.
Thank you so much. And
Thank you.
we pride ourselves in being the gateway to South Orange County. So you from here to San Clemente. So
Yep.
perfect logic for me because we are the gateway to South Orange County. So congratulations on your new position. I know you're doing a great job.
Thank you. Have a good evening, and happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
And before you go, I thought I would just say that there are some wireless some wireless applicants that I think are going to go to Edison in the near future. In fact, I've talked to, who's the person who works for Edison? She lives in Lake Forest.
Carrier
Yes,
Solutions.
Alexandra. And there's 27 applications she has, so we're all very excited about increasing our cell phone coverage here in Lake Forest. So whatever you can do to help us, that would be great.
Okay, absolutely. If you can let me know, I'll be happy to follow up with our Carrier Solutions group.
Great.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you very much.
Thank you.
Tom Cagley, followed by Conrad Conradson.
Good evening.
Good evening, Your Honor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. This will be real quick. Mayor, what you just said about Lake Forest being a gateway to the South Orange County is important. It's going to become more important in the near future. Our traffic is going to get worse and worse. This morning's paper had an article about the fact that the county is going to build 2,000 residences between us and the Great Park. Those cars have got to go somewhere. They said 40,000 a day, I think, would be increased traffic. They're supposed to go on 5 perhaps, but they'll come down Irvine Boulevard or other roads. We really need a good traffic commission or traffic organization in this city. You appointed one a year or so ago, the traffic planning group or the advisory group, and then it got rolled into the planning commission. But there's nobody on that commission that has traffic background. I really suggest the council consider creating a traffic commission or committee of some sort, just as you did the U.S. Marine Corps Support Committee. Do not go before the council. You selected people who are qualified to be in that committee. You could do the same here. My suggestion would be Jim Reichert, who's got an experience in this background in this. Appoint him as the chairman of an ad hoc committee and have him select 4 community members to solve and resolve and work on these traffic issues we have in this city and are coming down the road. That's all. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Question for the city manager. We've heard nothing back really from that parking or traffic planning commission. Are we going to find out what they've been doing for these 6 months?
Yes, after the beginning of the year, they'll be coming to you with a report.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you.
Conrad Conradson, followed by Sherry Anderson.
Good evening, graduate.
Thank you very much. First, I'd like to thank the city and council members for the program we just went through. It was absolutely wonderful. Under that, I was informed that we have a wonderful city center being built, but my concern is that there's no restaurant or anything being accommodated in that center for all the 300 plus employee and 24-hour staff for the sheriff's department and so forth, and the elderly. And I think there could be made so there could be a 24-hour service, unlimited service, certain times of the day or night. And that could also help the elderly eventually get better nutrition. And the carbon footprint that all those trips are going to take 3 miles probably each direction to go and get lunch. And that would be 6 miles minimum per trip. I sat and calculated loosely. And that would make a significant carbon footprint on the city, plus the traffic of all those people going to go in the peak hours and coming in the morning or at lunch or in the afternoon or whatever they need to get a snack. They can do that in-house, so to speak, and that could probably be contracted out to the way the city does it, that using contract workforce. So that's basically what I say that should be considered, and I think that would be a great asset for that community center.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That's a great idea. Thank you so much.
I have a question for city staff. Do we have anything in the works for like a food service type of thing for, because he does have a valid point. There are going to be a lot of people coming in and out of that area.
We don't have any plans to bring in a food concessionaire like a coffee cart or something like that, because we don't know what the actual numbers will be and if it would support a business like that. There will be a food concession through the senior center, similar to what we're doing now with our Thursday meals and so forth. The community center, it's available for rentals, and people could bring in their own caterer to have food there. But other than that, there are no further plans for any kind of food service commercially.
Just to follow up on that, in fact, I've been at war with the community services people and the city manager for a while about us having that kind of a facility. I call it the Cheers room, where everybody knows your name in that restaurant kind of thing. So I'm just telegraphing, I will bring up after the first of the year, get the senior plans and try to get your support for going forward. And thank you, Conradson, because I think that would be an excellent amenity for the place. So it's not dead, and we'll get another bite at that apple.
Good.
Sherry Anderson, followed by Heikel Peschel.
Hi, this is Dennis Menace, and this is little Goldie, worth her weight in gold. They're my little foster kittens, saved from a high-kill shelter. It was an Orange County shelter. They're too difficult to work with and expensive for a lot of the foster groups. So a lot of their kittens, 700 to 900 kittens, puppies, and dogs are killed every month. It hurts my heart. You can see on their paperwork, Downey doesn't charge a fee to rescue groups, unlike Orange County. They also had a brother, but he died yesterday from an upper respiratory illness he picked up at the pound. I have their paperwork which states they didn't have it when they were taken in on October 28th, which is why it's important to get them to rescue groups as soon as possible before they get sick. He was a sweetie. The paperwork states he had a behavioral problem. You know, like Orange County labels behavioral problems so they can make them unadoptable and kill them. Our city attorney can tell you how it works. Orange County is notorious with rescue groups for mislabeling pets. Dennis Menace is also labeled as a behavioral problem. In fact, the paperwork states he couldn't even be sexed because of the problem. Our city attorney, kittens and puppies under 8 weeks at Orange County are labeled too young to live and just killed. If they're 8 weeks and over, they have to make them unadoptable. These guys were all due to die a week ago before I saved them at the last minute. Today, real shelters around the country are showing they can use a no-kill model, saving lives and money. But you already know that. This room has been filled with groups saying so. This is why I'm here and support the recall. Councilman Hamilton, Voigt, and Robinson, you voted to kill kittens and puppies just like this. In my opinion, for your political association with county officials that wanted our city money. You can't really think we can't do it in Lake Forest humanely and for less. You gave $15,000 and $15,000 for Orange County for the satellite rescue center, and you seem to think that's all it takes. Sharon from Mission Viejo told you how to do it. I'm not sure who is representing our city at the secret meetings, but I request again that our city council push for change. Aren't we paying them over $1 million this year for their high kill pound? Why shouldn't we? We should have a lot of influence. Tell them to change to a no-kill model. I hope you, Councilman Hamilton, is recalled and know that, in my opinion and experience, it's due to little guys like this that you voted to kill. Animals don't vote, but people that vote, that love them, do.
Thank you for your comments.
Heiko Peschel, followed by Vincent Burke.
Good evening, Heiko.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council persons, and city staff. Heiko Peschel for Perel Foothill Ranch. And I got a minor list of stuff here. First of all, my congratulations to the leadership folks, because I've been there, done that, and I really enjoyed it, and I hope they did it as much as I do. And if the city wants to do step 2 in this process, I'd like to volunteer for that too. Okay, now, a few years ago, and I've mentioned this before, the pickle man put us a sign waiver out in front of his restaurant, and the city told him he couldn't do that. When is the city going to start doing that with all the housing folks? In this case, this last weekend was Iron Ridge, had 3 of the folks out there along Portola waving their signs, trying to attract people to come up and visit their houses. They only do it on weekends. I don't know how our code enforcement is on weekends, but it certainly looks like it could be better. I noticed also slurry seal. You've got it on the agenda later on, and this is not a reference to this particular one, but when the city was nice enough to slurry seal our neighborhood, we actually had to call them back and have them come out because they missed about 1/3 of what they were going to do out there. Next item, Portola Extension. You just heard previous speaker mention the fact that traffic is going to get really bad. Our merchants in the Foothill Ranch area would really enjoy it if we took Portola all the way into Irvine, or at least got the county to do that, because all those folks there in Irvine are going to have so much traffic in that city that they're going to have to come here for dinner and or shopping and or whatever else. And I think that would be and a mitigating factor in the expense of building that road. Last, heard mention about the Traffic Commission / Planning Commission. Having spoken with at least one, if not several, of the folks, they're still waiting for direction from City Hall, as in from the council and staff, as to what problems might exist and what problems they can fix. My suggestion is all of you come up with your favorite problems and send them to them so that they can do something in reference to it. Right now, they're working in a vacuum. Thank you.
Thank you, Heiko.
I have a couple of follow-up comments. First, Heiko's right. For those of you, if your area is going to be sealed, I had the same experience. My streets were not done well, so you have to go back and report it to the city and get us to get the contractors to go ahead and do a better job than they're doing. So it's kind of up to you. We don't go out and follow up, and that follow-up is up to you to do. And I found the contractors did a very good job once we followed up with them. Also on the direct, I think the vacuum must be coming from somewhere else, because 3 of us from this council gave very specific guidance to the Park and Traffic Commission as to what we wanted done. So I don't know how they're saying, but I know 3 of us gave extensive notes in that area. So they have our pet projects.
But I could always come up with more.
Vincent Burke, followed by Kristen Eldred.
Good evening, Vincent.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Vincent Burke, Lake Forest. 3 items from the last meeting. One was the discussion of the wireless deployment. There was a simple question regarding the diameter of some light poles. The Edison rep came up here and droned on for about 30 minutes. Stop these people. Once they have to answer your question, please stop them and send them back. And they come back for other questions. Okay. Number 2, there was an issue regarding the duck toilet and the name change and a veterans monument there at the duck toilet. We all know what I'm talking about. Some noses were bent out of shape because there was allegedly allegations of insufficient community outreach. Okay, whatever. These people have the right to come up here and be upset if they didn't know what was going on. But the problem that I had was that a third of public comments time was used by you folks going with your humla and mea culpas and trying to explain that you would be seeking other remedies for this. If you're going to do that, and I think state law says you're not supposed to be doing that, Mayoral, your prerogative, you can make a brief comment, I'm sure. But anyways, if you're going to do that, please have the clerk stop the clock. You guys say what you have to say, and then resume public comments for the full 30 minutes that we are supposed to be allotted, not being chewed up by 10 minutes or more of you folks with the humla. Okay? And speaking of clock, I hope at the new city council chamber you're going to get something better than this, and you'll put in a digital display. Okay, last item has to do with the transition to district-based elections. I'm not going to have time to say everything I wanted to, but there was a protracted discussion of communities of interest. Portola, Foothill Ranch, Lake 1, Lake 2. I'm sorry, folks, newsflash. These are not communities of interest. They are communities of self-interest. They are very little interest to me, very little interest outside of those specific areas. We all know what this communities of interest really addresses, and Mr. Hamilton touched on that, although in a very PC manner, but I understand PC means fear of the left, but that had to do with protected classes and what's in the stated letters from the Schenkman and Shyster. And anyways, gosh, there's so much to say. I'm running over. I'm going to be running over here, and I have hit my time limit. But anyways, you've sent, hopefully, Mr. Mayor, you've received those emails that I sent you regarding from my associates down in San Diego regarding the lawsuits that are challenging the CRVA. So,
Yes, thank you.
as always, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much.
And real quick, I thought I would respond to that. I guess we're holding the clock on all the other comments. But I agree with you, and actually, Shankman actually called me out on a Voice of OC article. So I'm not bashful in addressing this ambulance chaser. So
I too want to say that they've just gone through and slurry sealed my neighborhood, or spot sealed cracks. And as I was rolling down the street walking my dog, there was a lot of cracks that weren't covered. They went like real quick over them. So it's really prevalent to all of you to, if when they go through, to check what they've done, because we've seen them, whether it be Councilman Gardner's street or some of the streets surrounding the lake. They sometimes go through and lickety split and miss spots. Concerning what he mentioned about the upcoming district changes, there has been a lawsuit in San Diego. A former mayor from the city of Poway has brought legal action trying to stop it, saying it's unconstitutional to be forced upon them. So that's where he was addressing there. Is there anybody else from you?
Kristen Eldred, followed by Larissa Clark.
Can I just say real quick, Vincent also touched on something that I think is really important. Here we are timing our residents. Everyone gets 3 minutes, and that's all they get. They got to say what they got to say, and then they have to sit down. You know, and I'm not a fan of trying to get people to do things that I wouldn't be willing to do myself. And so I bring this up because I think it's really important for us as city council members to really pay attention to what it is that we're trying to say. And, you know, maybe we could start writing some notes down on a notepad and say what we have to say as quickly as possible, because all of our time is precious. And I think that we can save probably 30 minutes, even an hour in our meetings if we, all of us, are more prepared, writing our thoughts down and not hitting our microphones until we are ready to say what it is that needs to be said.
Thank you for your
So I'm
comment.
just calling everybody out.
Kristen Eldred.
Good evening, Mayor, Council.
Good evening, graduate.
Yes, thank you. Fantastic program, but I don't want to use my time with kudos until I have the end here. My discussion tonight is about the new Civic Center. As our city moves closer to building out the new Civic Center, which is our 100-year home, I love that tagline, the choices we make today are going to have a long-term impact on the community and the fiscal health of our city. I learned more about the Civic Center plans during the last class from City Manager Deborah Rose, and she shared that the Civic Center has plans to have solar panels only over the parking area. And she was at a very high level, so I was trying to find out how much of our energy is going to be produced by these solar panels. It sounds like maybe 20% out the gate with solar panels, with the potential of later on adding enough panels to do 40%. I'm here to really strongly encourage that we really look at that, because not only is there a benefit to the clean energy, but also a huge fiscal impact on energy savings over the next few decades. And I think it's really important that we build for the future. We are calling it our 100-year home. And I did talk with Mr. Neves later this afternoon and got a little more information. And it sounds like the rooftop as solar options, you know, we may be too far down the road for that. I'm not sure. But we do have slope sides that can be used for solar. We could actually consider building out the entire solar panels out the gate rather than looking at that later. So there's some things that I would strongly encourage you to look at before we get further down the road so that we can save some money. The savings on the energy cost, I think, provide another win. There's very few times when we have no downside to making a decision. And I think the solar panels is one area that is just a win-win-win. First, we've got clean energy, and that's emblematic of our city's dedication to the environment. Second, we've got a win with savings on energy costs, and that's in alignment with our city's fiscally conservative approach. And third, those savings, as I learned during our academy, our city spends a lot of money on community events and classes, and they're not self-sustained via the fees. We subsidize that. So any money we can save at overhead at the Civic Center could help to prolong and encourage more events for the community at large. So, thank you.
Thank you. On that topic, how much of the top parking structure is going to be covered with solar panels?
The whole top middle section will be covered with solar panels. That in the parking deck contract was about $1 million to put those in. And then we also have put the infrastructure in to add more solar panels at a later date. So we have that being built into the structure right now, so we don't have to go back and spend a whole lot more money. But we have the ability to put in more solar
And
panels.
so those other solar panels would be over the parking structure again, or the parking outside the buildings?
Just over the parking deck structure.
Okay. Thank you for your comments, and we will.
Larissa Clark.
Good evening.
Good evening. Larissa Clark, resident of Lake Forest since 1998. I'm here tonight to talk to you about the Planning and Traffic Commission. So I waited it out a few months to let them get their feet wet, and then I went with my document that I created in January after my first meeting with Tom Wheeler and Dave, actually before, in preparation. You can see all the stuff in red is what I've requested. All the stuff in green has been done. So I took this to the Planning and Traffic Commission. Here are my top 3 things that I was like, oh no. I followed the procedure given to me by the city and went there and told them about the stuff, and then what did they do? Second, the commissioner, one of them, states, and I quote because I believe in facts, so I pulled the video, "Are we a review body only?" Question mark, looking at staff and others. They also stated, "Do we even have the power?" Another fun one. "Are we action-oriented on this commission?" Another fun quote. He asks, "Do we have any task action items? Like they come to us and they say stuff, but do we have a task for an action on these issues?" And they bounced it back and forth from staff and commissioner about how to proceed and fix the areas of traffic and concern that residents are bringing, following the city's procedure. Then there was some talk, number 3, concern of a report, like staff was going to report to the commission, like what they were doing, but they never gave us the report that night. I don't know, so this is my official report to you that I fear that system is broke and nothing is going to get done. They keep bouncing the ball back to council, saying they need direction. That is not my understanding of it. I believe that their direction should have been given to them at the genesis of this committee and not 6 months into it when residents are there on and on with the same issues. I got my daughter's crosswalk, but nothing else. So I really don't want to be stuck between 2 systems as they both fail me, because I will figure out a way to work it. But please address this issue. Planning and traffic, it's your number 1 complaint in the city. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
We've had no further requests.
And with that, brings us to the Warrant Registry. All matters listed under the Warrant Registry are considered routine and will be acted by one vote. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless members of the City Council, the public, or staff request specific items to be removed from the Warrant Registry for separate action. Have there been any requests?
No, sir.
Council? I'll entertain a motion.
I want to recuse myself on an item on page 21 regarding Serrano Creek. It was from Jamie Clark Incorporated. And I had another question. I'm not sure. I'm guessing this is more of a Public Works question, but since it's a park, it might fall under Community Services. But was reading through, I think it's the Neves landscape, and I was struck by the cost of replacing a basketball net. And it's just one of many. And you know, I think sometimes our eyes can glaze over as we're going through the warrant register, but it was $115 to replace a basketball net. And so I'm guessing that that was included in the bid that they provided us, and they gave us a line item. There might be some loss leaders and some things that are really expensive, you know, when they put these things together, but it really jumped out at me, and it's just something that I'd like us to try to pay some very close attention to, some of the minute details and costs. And, you know, if there's something that we feel is out of whack there, that we definitely try to address that. I know overall, when someone's bidding on a contract, we're looking at the total price. And does that meet the budget? And is it the lowest bid that's coming in? So we might not be looking at it on a line item basis, but, you know, I think that for the average resident who might spend the tedious time going through a warrant register, they'd probably be shocked. And it's our version of the, you know, $25,000 toilet seat that the U.S. Navy's, paying for. So I just want us to be cognizant of that.
So is that, we entertain a motion?
I'll move the item with my recusal on that.
I'll second.
Item.
Okay, council, please cast your votes.
That motion passes unanimously.
That brings us to consent calendar. All matters listed in the consent calendar are considered routine and will be acted with one vote. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a member of the City Council, the public, or staff requests specific items to be removed from the consent calendar for separate action. Have there been any requests from the public?
We've had no requests.
Council, I entertain motions.
I'll move.
Second.
Please cast your votes.
And just a quick comment, the treasurer's report reports $136.8 million, so let's spend it on our Civic Center.
Okay.
That motion passes unanimously.
That brings us to the public hearing. And I'm going to open this public hearing. Receive staff report.
This is Agenda Item 9, Public Hearing Number 5, Transition to District-Based Elections, submitted by City Clerk.
Mayor and members of the council, we have a short staff report for you from our city clerk, Stephanie Smith.
And if I could ask one of the staff members to turn the monitor screen on. Thank you. And bring up the PowerPoint. Mayor and Council, as you're aware, this is the fifth public hearing that we've held regarding the transition to district-based elections, and it began with two public hearings prior to receive public input prior to preparing maps. We held some community workshops. We've had two public hearings following the preparation of maps. This is the third public hearing following that. And at the public hearing on the 7th of November, the council focused on two maps and essentially directed the demographers to prepare multiple variations of those two particular maps. So tonight we have a total of 10 focus maps to discuss with you, and just wanted to review some of the items before us. So it's kind of hard to see there, but that was just a timeline of what's happened so far. And then the next steps is we're going to conduct tonight's hearing on the new focus maps. The goal of tonight's hearing would be ultimately to select a map if possible, and then determine the sequencing of district elections for the November 2018 and 2020 elections. At the meeting of December 5, the timeline calls for us to introduce an ordinance approving the district-based elections, the map, and the sequencing, and then at a subsequent meeting adopting the ordinance, finalizing that decision, and then, of course, the implementation would be in the November 2018 election. So essentially by July, because of the time for candidates to nominate and pull papers starts in July of next year. So taking a look at the maps, this was the original map 116, and the council had identified this map as a map of focus on October 3rd. And on November 7th, they asked for some variations of that. So we have map 116B, And if you notice the two circles, essentially what this does is it eliminated the long, narrow strip to the southern portion of the city, as well as shortened up District 2 that ran along the northern portion. If you remember on maps 116, District 2 ran the entire length of the city from the 241 essentially to the 5. So it created a more elongated District 5 at the western border of the city. Then map 116C essentially deals with the same type of a sliver. Instead of the District 2 running the entire length of the city, it shortened it up and created a more compact District 2 and District 4 and District 5. District 5 then is basically had been most of the western portion, but now it's about half of the western portion. District 116, or map 116D, essentially does the same thing. However, it creates one long district along the freeway corridor, and it addresses the two slivers along both sides of the city's boundaries. And it should be noted that all of these variations have some minor adjustments that were to balance populations, to reduce the deviation of population, make the populations as equal as possible.
Madam Clerk, but do all the maps that are presented to us tonight fit within the guidelines of the state?
Yes, they do. All of these maps are legally compliant and meet the requirements of both the federal and California Voting Rights Acts.
Thank you.
Map 116E does the same thing, essentially addresses the sliver that went up the southern portion of the city, and then it also shortened up District 2 along the northern portion, creating a more compact district. So those are the variations of map 116. The next focus map that the council settled on October 3rd is map 128. And this map was actually prepared by the demographers as a result of a request that we create districts that run pretty much the length of the city. So this was created in response to that, and it was settled on. It was seen for the first time on November 7th. So the variations that the council requested, essentially the same thing, do some minor adjustments and see if we can see differences in that map. So map 128B essentially took the center districts and moved some boundary lines to create different configurations and essentially improve population balance. If you notice there's 128, and then 128B has that little bulb out there in District 2. Map 128C, it does the same thing, very minor changes, but it really is just to population balance and create a lower deviation. The same with D. It does the same thing. However, it also creates a different district along the freeway corridor, whereas the original 128 and the other versions had a solid district along the freeway corridor up to around Muirlands Boulevard. This one split the freeway corridor into two different districts. It also shortened up District 3 in the center, which had come much farther down closer to the freeway. Map 129 is a new map that was not seen at the November 7th meeting. This is essentially a variation of 128, but if you notice, the major difference between 128 and 129 is that Portola Hills is split right down the center. Essentially, some of the older part of Portola Hills and then the newer part of Portola Hills, whereas all of the other maps kept Portola Hills together in one district. This divides it down Saddleback Ranch Road. So that's a presentation of the maps that were discussed at the last meeting. This is a public hearing. We do have a request to speak from a member of the community. We're happy to answer any questions you have at this time.
No, I think that we'll accept public comments right now.
Tom Cagley.
Good evening, Your Honor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. I do live in Lake Forest. I forgot to mention it the last time, but I think you all know me anyway. I'm a mystery over map 129. I'm not sure why that showed up. The rules they started with several months ago was they were all to be presented so public could review these things, and all of a sudden 129 shows up on the list. Dr. Gardner did a great analysis of all the maps originally, and 110 was by far the best. And I understand Councilmember Hamilton desired to unify the city. Also understand the gentleman who spoke earlier during public comments about these are not communities of interest, but communities of self-interest. Yes, they are. Sun & Sail Club is different from the trailer parks, which are also their interests, and we are different from Baker Ranch, which is probably going to be a younger community than we see down in the western part of the city. This is Portola Hills, where Mayor Pro Tem lives. These are all communities of self-interest, perhaps, but they're also communities that should be maintained as much as possible. If we're forced into doing this, personally, I find map 116 the only one we have an option left to actually follow the original instructions that gives us the cities. I personally like 116D, but this is not relevant to me in that regard, other than the fact that it keeps the compactness and the communities of interest together. That's all I have, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
We've had no further requests.
Okay, bring it back to council for questions.
I thought the demographer, and I particularly remember Councilman Robinson asking him to get back with us and tasking him 3 objectives. Number 1, to reduce the deviations, to improve the compactness, and to tell us about communities of interest. Now, it appears that he gave us the information on the deviations, and if you hunted for it, you could find the information on the compactness, but it doesn't appear he gave us the information on the communities of interest. Would that be a fair assumption? Or is that hidden even more obscurely than compactness?
We did not receive specific information about communities of interest. There was a comment that I know went back between some of the conversations that there's not a measure for communities of interest. However, the maps that they drew, their intent was to keep the communities of interest as identified by the community and the council together as possible. But there was no additional information specifically related to that presented.
Okay. These guys got paid for this, right?
We have a contract with them to perform the work, yes.
Are any of them in the audience tonight?
They are not with us tonight.
I've been a consultant on probably 100 projects in my life. Anytime the client asked, I always produced. But anyway, putting that aside, I went ahead and I did the work for them, going through and looking at communities of interest, because we had the deviations and we had the compactness, and on those, which they did a good job on. You know, on deviations, that 116D had only 11. That's almost hard to believe. And they had another one that had only 69. For those of you in the audience who don't know what I'm talking about, that's the extent to which we have one person, one vote. So 11 means there were only 11 people out of 75,000 people that deviated from that one person, one vote. An incredible accomplishment. And we had 69, and then we had those other 2 that were 110, 145. So we had that. The compactness, they also did very well with the compactness. They gave us a .48 and a .47 and a .47 and a .45 on the 116s. All of that was somewhere between 110 and 109, but those were also. So they did their job with regard to giving us more compliance with one person, one vote, and more compact districts. Where they failed us, though, well, you know, failed is probably the wrong word, was in continuing to split up the communities of interest. 116, for example, splits up Lake 1, splits up Lake 2, splits up the mobile homes, that's 116D. 128C splits up the lake, splits up Lake 1, splits up Lake 2, splits up Foothill Ranch. 128D splits up the mobile homes, splits up the lakes, Lake 1, Lake 2. Foothill Ranch, it actually divides into 3 pieces. It's 128 splits up Lake 1, Lake 2, also splits up Foothill Ranch. In the original 116 that they started with, split up the lakes, Lake 1, Lake 2, Creekside as well. So we're looking at, on the new ones they gave us, 116 and all its variations and 128 in all its variations, and I didn't even look at 129. That was just so silly that I just didn't want to spend the time on it. But it breaks up communities of interest. There is an argument, and I know Councilman Hamilton makes it, that we don't want communities of interest because we don't want people to band together. We want them to think of themselves as part of the city. And that is an argument that can be made. When I asked everybody on 3 polls and 1 HOA in person what they wanted, it was clear that people in communities wanted to stay together. That was the overriding concern of the people, even if it meant sacrificing compactness. They wanted to stay together as communities of interest, albeit self-interest. I think Colonel Cowley is right. It is self-interest, but that doesn't make it bad.
Can I interject to just ask you a question? Did you ask them if they didn't want district elections, or just to kind of stay together as unity? Was that not a question? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I had asked that originally when we got into this like 6 months ago, or something like that.
Okay.
So
I got to intercede because, in all due respect, the people I talk to aren't happy about going to districts, and so it's depending on, I guess, the people you talk to or how you hear it. But I'm hearing that people are feeling like they're going to be isolated, and I think it's bringing up. I think Councilman Hamilton's theory in having the long, narrow strips was that we don't get tribalized, where the foothills are against the freeways and the lakes are against the creeks, and tribal theory, I think, is what he was trying. But we are forced down this road, and I think there was a lot of people from the community that came out and spoke in favor of 116, and I think that the idea of fairness is well preserved in 116, because I think that it leaves us in areas of interest, which is going to happen, but we're not going to have an utopia map, because the fact is you're going to split along rooms where part of this neighborhood is on the other side of El Toro, the part of this neighborhood's on the other side of Serrano Creek. I think that I'd be happy to make a motion right now and try to settle this, because this is something that's going to be a fluid thing for the next couple of years to come because of all the new housing coming to Lake Forest. We have Baker Ranch being built out. We have Foothill, Portola, all still adding new. I think within the next 6 years, where this map would totally change again. So I'd make a motion. Well, I'm going to make a motion, and you can listen. I'll make a motion that 116B, and if we can make a motion on that, if it gets seconded now or later. But Councilman Hamilton wants to speak, so.
Yeah, and I may or may not second your motion, so I don't want to opine on it quite yet. So I've kind of been thinking about where have we been, where are we going, and I kind of thought that we were going to have our demographer here. I think that was, and I know there are scheduling conflicts and things. We got that email. Thank you, staff, for sending that to us. I just think that we're having a difficult time finding the perfect map, and so, without them being here, I think that was part of the reason I recall the last meeting was to be able to move on the fly, to change some of the boundaries and do that here. I know that would be probably pretty difficult. Someone might accuse us of making sausage. However, I think that was something that was said, and I also had a thought, too, is that there had been discussion about having a citywide mayor, and I think we might have forgotten about that. I would say that we may throw that into the mix.
Yeah, I don't think we forgot about it. because that was one of the things we talked about early on, and I believe it was Councilman Robinson who said, listen, since we're being forced to do this, the best thing we can do is come up with a model that most resembles the model we have now. And that was 5 people elected, and then they choose the mayor. So we actually had quite a big discussion about this, and we rejected the idea, although, you know, it's a good idea, and people are interested in that. But the thought was, given that we're being forced to do this, let's do it in a way which is the most like what we have, and that was the decision. So that was...
Well, maybe I forgot that then, but I think there might be an opportunity for us to think about that again, since we don't have the demographer here. So I guess my gut says that without him being here, that I really want to have the ability to try to refine the maps, and I too don't see one that's perfect. I'm not a fan of districts at the same token, and would like to see our city all together. So I guess my motion would be to wait until we can have the demographer here to be able to do these changes on the fly, because I don't see one that, you know, I think one of my colleagues last week or last time said the numbers don't lie, but I don't see the map.
Council, Mel, in the letter that was sent to us, is it feasible to even consider a citywide mayor on the concept of what he sent the city?
Mr. Mayor, Council, the council actually gave direction some months ago for the city attorney to bring back in 2018 proposed language for ballot measures that propose a citywide mayor. So the council has taken direction to go with 5 districts. As of now, the council could always reverse that direction. There is nothing in the letter from Attorney Shankman that would prohibit us from doing that. There have been arguments made in the past that he doesn't agree with that approach. There are good legal minds that are on both sides of that issue, but there's nothing to prevent the council from doing that. Again, the council has given direction to me to bring back that issue next year.
So could that be put on the ballot in 2018?
If the council took that step, sure, that's the intent.
And just to further that, there's people on both sides of the argument whether this is constitutional, breaking us up, and forcing us to go into districts. That's being challenged now. Correct?
That's being challenged currently in federal court in San Diego. That's correct.
Okay, so looking at the maps, the truth is there are no perfect maps. If we're aiming for perfection, we're not going to find it. You know, I'm happy to settle and support Mayor Voigt's motion for 116B. So I'll second that motion.
116 which?
B.
Is there any further discussion? Councilman Hammond? And I'll...
Well, wait a second. Let's look at 116B. 116B differs by 889 people compared to 116D, which...
Councilman Gardner, the people in District 3 are gaining 20 new residents this week because their people are moving in. So it's going to be a fluid map anyways because people are moving in to districts. District 1, which is Foothill Ranch, Portola, there's new people moving in there all the time. So this population weighted balance is out of whack because you've got 2 communities, 2 districts that are gaining new residents every week.
Yes, we know, and unfortunately we have to do it based on the...
So there's been a motion and a second. And without, I'll call the vote. Okay, please cast your votes. And mind you, people, these maps are fluid, and we will be readdressing these. And like I said, this may be 12 people out of whack or 13, but District 1 and District 2 are gaining new residents every week as we speak because of the new housing that are being sold in those communities, in those districts.
That motion passes with Councilmember Gardner and Councilmember Hamilton opposed.
Well, congratulations, we got through that. That brings us, and so I'm going to close the public hearing.
Mr. Mayor, there's still another item to address, and that's the sequencing of the districts themselves.
You're right.
Yeah, the sequencing map, we had that on the last package, but we don't have it with us tonight.
It's actually, if you look on, I'm sorry, I don't have the agenda page, on page 5 of the staff report, it's page 180, table number 6 provides you the sequencing options, and if we selected map 116B, so there are essentially 2 options, and these options are designed to consider the council terms of the existing officers, and the reason for that is that actually the elections code states that the wishes of the voters that elected the officers should be taken into consideration when discussing sequencing. It's actually in the elections code, so it should be considered. That's why these particular options. It would not make sense to the voters to put districts that did not correspond to current officers' terms expirations on the ballot in 2018, to the extent possible.
I'm trying to catch up. Could you get me to that page again?
Page 180, Table 6.
I'll move option 1 and 116B.
I'll second that.
Can I see it?
Option 1 in 116B would be districts 2, 3, and 4 in 2018, and districts 1 and 5 in 2020.
Okay, so since we're already in motions and we haven't really had much comment, then I'm just going to make a substitute motion in lieu of my comments. I personally believe that the districts don't belong to any one of us. I believe that the districts are carved out in such a way as we've just voted on, and that the most appropriate way of doing this would be to draw the numbers out of a hat. So we take all 5 numbers, put them in a hat, the city clerk pulls out, and the first 3 numbers are the ones that are on the ballot. And if I understand from some conversations with the city attorney, there's nothing that would preclude anyone from running in a district, even if they were in the middle of their term. So I'm in the middle of my term. Mayor Pro Tem Basil is as well. So if our district happened to pop up, we could choose to run, or we could choose not to and serve out the last 2 years of our term as well. So that's my substitute motion.
So I'm willing to support that, but before I do, I just have a question. So with the option 1, it's easy to, it kind of normally coincides with the existing. So if we pull things out of a hat, could you walk us, and I think the audience, all of us, through if, say, just for example, 1, 2, and 3, or 3, 4, and 5. It doesn't matter. Just do 3, 4, and 5. If 3, 4, and 5 are the ones picked, walk us through what that would entail.
The fact is, just to save you some time, the fact is you, Scott, and I are up. So those should be the districts that the votes happen. If you don't do it that way and you have Dwight and Leah up, then who's in our district? Our districts go, how can you do that? So the district, the way we sequence it, should be the people who are up. And it's you, him, and me. And 2, 3, and 4 is the way to do that.
Are you seconding his motion? You're seconding his motion?
Just for, I've already stated that I'm not going to run again, so this has nothing to do with me, but clearly in that Councilmember Hamilton and I are in the same district, so you could make the argument either way, that the district was just voted on last November, or the district will be voted on next November.
That's true.
So, it's just how you could look at that. And I just, again, I made my substitute motion. I don't have a second yet, so, it could just completely die. But, that's just...
It works for your district, but in terms of
understand.
Scott and I, then you get defeated, if you get defeated, then there's nobody then we have a council made out of two people, which might work really well. I don't know. But,
Or it could make, create some new business for a realtor.
so I don't see it technically being possible except to do the districts that we're up for.
Yeah, that makes the most sense.
I'm willing to second the motion, but can staff answer the question for just pick any three that are picked? 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3.
Well, okay, for example, if the districts that were pulled were 1, 2, and 3, then in November, the Foothill Ranch and Portola Hills area would be on the ballot. The Baker Ranch, kind of along the northern side, down almost to Muirlands, would be on the ballot. And then the southern section. So the district that Mayor Pro Tem Basil lives in, Mayor Voigt's, and then 2 is the two of you. So those districts would be on the ballot. So Mayor Pro Tem Voigt, you could choose to run for that district seat, and you would not have to give up your current seat to run. If you were elected to that seat, then you would get a new 4-year term beginning next year. Your current seat would then become vacant, that the council would have to fill a vacancy either by appointment or special election. Okay, so that's what would happen with District 1 if 1, 2, and 3 were on the ballot. If you were defeated in November, there would be another resident from the Portola Hills, Foothill Ranch area that was on the council, and you would remain on the council for the remainder of your term. So for the 2-year period, there would be 2 people from that geographic district on the council.
Oh, that won't work.
So that's 1, 2, and 3, what would happen. And with 2 and 3, as you said, we have Councilmember Robinson and Hamilton. Your term isn't up, so you would remain on the council. Councilmember Hamilton could choose to run in District 2. Mayor Voigt's could choose to run in District 3. It coincides with your term being up anyway.
And then Councilman Hamilton wins, and Councilman Robinson finishes out his term.
Correct.
So that would give us 5 councilmen
Correct.
still.
Correct. And if District 2 if District 2 is on the ballot in 2018, and if Council Hamilton were to win, that district would have 2 officers for the remaining 2 years. But that's simply because of where you live now, where the incumbents live now.
The vacancy would be vacancy in District 5 at that time.
And there would be no, there's no vacancy because we have 5 members of the council. It's just that District 5 wouldn't have a representative at the moment. Right. But that's what happens during the transition process. It's a 2 election cycle transition for full implementation.
All right.
Okay. So I understand everything you're saying, but there's nothing that precludes me, other than the fact that I said that I'm not going to run. There's nothing that precludes me from moving into one of these districts. And for instance, if the district that encompasses Mayor Voigt's is on the ballot, correct, I can move into that district and run against him.
Correct.
And then my seat becomes vacant if I beat him.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So it can happen if we decide to. So, what I'm trying to do is get out of this district belongs to this council member and this council member and this council member. We all were elected at large. We don't belong to any of these districts. And, I know that it creates a little bit of chaos. This whole system is chaotic. Districts in and of themselves are chaotic, right? And so, especially the inception of them. So, I'm not saying what I'm suggesting is a perfect solution, but what I'm trying to do is try to make it as less about us as possible and more just random. And, I'll offer one more suggestion out here, and that's that initially we didn't plan on having this discussion tonight. It was going to be at our meeting December 5th. So as much as we want to try to take this action tonight, we just determined what the district was. So if we wanted to kick it to the next meeting, that would put us on schedule with where we were at 2 weeks ago anyway.
I'll make a substitute motion.
If we want to move forward tonight.
I'm going to make a substitute motion that we kick the districting numbering, the rotation, or how you want to use it, sequences to December 5th. I'm going to move it.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay. Substitute motion made. Please cast your votes.
Can we have,
Yeah, I'd like discussion too.
Okay.
yeah, could we have just a little discussion on that? So what does everybody, I mean, I don't have an opinion. One
You know, the fact is, Andrew, Scott, and I are up. So those should be, might as well be the districts up. Otherwise, you got to fill a vacancy, you got to do an appointment, you got all these
Special
things that
election, which
doesn't-
can cost money.
Yeah, what kind of crazy stuff is that? I don't think that district, whatever it is, it's a terrible district, but you picked it, belongs to me. It doesn't belong to me. I live in that, happen to live in that district. I don't own that district. Makes no difference. And he doesn't own his, no, we don't own our districts. But the fact is, that's where we're in. I think the hat just creates, so then 5 gets nobody in 5, and then we got to appoint somebody to 5, and 4 gets nobody in 4, so we got to appoint somebody. It just seems like if the 3 of us are up, then the 3 of us should face the music. I'm not afraid of facing the music.
So run by me again. So the districts are 2, 3, and 4. Is that correct?
Correct. That was the original motion.
That's the motion. Okay. A question for the city attorney, because I know this has popped up in the past. We don't have a district that the attorney was trying to, I don't know how to best phrase this, but we don't have a way of accomplishing what he is ultimately hoping for,
There's
right?
no
So-
possibility of a majority-minority district.
Yeah, okay. So, but is in this more significant minority district.
District 5, having that go in 2020, is that a problem?
Would you see any potential issues arising from him with respect to that would cause us to have to throw this?
It's a
out
good
again?
question. The California Voting Rights Act, the section that deals with sequencing, lists two subjects to be considered. One was mentioned by Stephanie Smith, and that is the will of voters with regard to current council members, right? So who's up when? The second issue, which actually is listed first in the CVRA, has to do with that issue, with the purposes, is what it says, the purposes of the California Voting Rights Act. And that purpose is to protect minority communities that have been harmed by racially polarized voting. So there's an open question there, I think. But here, where there is simply no possibility of creating a majority-minority district, I think that argument wouldn't go too far.
Okay.
Yeah, just to give you some numbers.
Well, can I've
I know
been
you
a
hate
little
the numbers.
patient. No,
But,
I've been a little patient. So, do you mind if I interject here? I'm going to second Councilman Robinson's motion, and it's not that it's a desire of chaos or a desire of, let's shake things up or whatever. To me, it just, there's going to be a perception, I think, that we're trying to, the power of incumbency is very strong. And us, with this appearance of keeping the incumbents in the same seats, I know it's legal, but I don't like it. And that's why I would definitely support in 2 weeks, whenever it is that we're doing this, Councilman Robinson's to go random, because to me it's not about me, it's about the city, and I do not want my own political, capital, future, whatever, to be a deciding factor for me. I would rather say it's out of my hands, it was a random draw, our city attorney or city clerk would be the ones administering it, and if that's the way it works, that's the way it works. So to me, this is not about protecting my own power of incumbency, and I think that's so important in this redistricting proposal. So those are my comments.
So the answer to Councilman Robinson's question is that the city attorney was a little vague about, depending upon how you cut the cake here. And if you actually believe that Hispanic refers to a group, although the Cubans and the Brazilians and the Argentines and the Mexican might not agree, but let's accept that the demographer's definition of Hispanic is correct. The differences between all these maps are .47 and .41. So heavily Hispanic district goes at most .47 and at least .41. So there's not a heck of a lot of difference between the proportions, no matter how we cut the cake here. And in any event, it doesn't create a 50 or more. So we're pretty safe because there's no 50, and number two, because the difference is 41, 47, 43, etc.
And my main question was, in other cities where it has been a majority-minority district, he's required that to go on the ballot next, right? So, and I was just wondering if, since we were close, if we would be concerned about that in any way. And basically, anything that we do between now and the end of the year, could it just be blown apart by a potential?
Well, and I think that's important. Yes, he could challenge, right? There's no question there. The risks of challenge when it comes to sequencing are far smaller than the risks of the existing challenge, right? The exposure to fees is far less significant. So the council can certainly take the steps that are being discussed without significant fear of that exposure.
You have two substitutes.
Okay, the last substitute motion was to table this until the December 5th meeting.
Correct, and it was motioned and second.
For motion and second. So I'm going to call the vote for continuing the sequence into December 5th meeting. Please cast your votes.
And just as a point of discussion, I went ahead and seconded it, but I don't necessarily agree with it, because I think, let's just decide tonight.
That motion fails.
Okay. So, Madam Clerk, you're going to have to help me with this sequence
Certainly.
of our motions.
The second, or the original substitute motion, which would be the next one to be voted on, was to pull the district numbers out of a hat to determine the sequencing. That was moved by Councilmember Robinson and seconded by Councilmember Hamilton.
Just a quick comment about that. Say, hypothetically, we do pull from a hat, and the ones that get pushed to the 2020 happen to be all of the districts that have the minority in it. That could probably be challenged by Shankman if we were to put them all off. So doing a draw by hat and it comes to that wouldn't be a good solution for us, correct?
The same exposure previously discussed would exist there because of the impossibility of majority-minority district and how close those districts are in terms of population. It's not significant exposure. He certainly could challenge the sequencing. Again, that challenge would simply lead to that going to the ballot, but the attorney's fees exposure, which has been the concern to date, wouldn't be as significant as it has been for the existing challenge.
So, repeat the motion.
This motion is for the clerk to pull the districts out of a hat to determine the sequencing.
Please cast your votes.
Who we wait?
Me.
Can abstain if you can't make a judgment.
No.
That motion fails with Councilmember Gardner, Mayor Pro Tem Basil opposed, and Mayor Voights abstained. So just give me 1 second to catch up. Then this was the original motion, which was to go with option 1, made by Councilmember Gardner, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Basil. Districts 2, 3, and 4 on the November 2018 ballot. Districts 1 and 5 on the November 2020 ballot.
Please cast your votes.
That motion passes with Councilmember Gardner, Mayor Pro Tem Basil, and Councilmember Robinson in favor. Mayor Voigt abstained, Councilmember Hamilton opposed.
Would you guys mind if we just took a 5-minute restroom recess? Would that be okay?
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a 5-minute necessity break, please. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I
What? Happy Thanksgiving, you guys.
No, they change at 6:30. But all the time. Maybe when we get to the other Civic Center. Yes. That's true. All of them are they're all there. Starting with the top. The one he said about people like no, thank you. I mean, thank you. Always a pleasure. So mucho placer.
Yeah. Right?
Council, if you could please come back to the dais.
There's more people who want to talk about.
Okay, we're going to reconvene this meeting and bring it to discussion items.
We have a second public hearing. Amendment number 2 to previously approved tentative track map.
Did we close the first public meeting?
You did, sir.
Okay, we're going to open the second public hearing.
Amendment number 2 to previously approved tentative track map 17300 for Portola Center Northeast, consisting of refinements to subdivision design features and adjustments to the grading plan, submitted by Director of Development Services.
And we have a staff report from our Director of Development Services, Gail Ackerman.
So I'm going to open this public hearing.
Thank you, and good evening, members of the council. I'd like to introduce Marie Luna, Senior Planner. She has the presentation this evening.
I'm so sorry, I think your microphone isn't hitting all the speakers. And I don't think it's the microphone. I hear it.
Thank you. Let's try. Yes, that works. Okay, would you like me to start again or continue? Continue? Okay. Portola Center is located along Glen Ranch Road. It consists of nearly 200 acres spread over 3 planning areas: Portola Center South, Portola Center Northwest, and Portola Center Northeast. Development of Portola Center was approved by the City Council in 2013 under 2 tentative track maps, 15353 governing Portola Center South and 17300 governing Portola Center Northwest and Northeast. In 2014, the City Council approved the first amendment to tentative track map 17300. That amendment affected only Portola Center Northwest. The amendment modified the grading footprint, retaining walls, several residential lot layouts, and the adjoining trail alignment. This proposed amendment would only affect Portola Center Northeast, and it too would modify the grading footprint, retaining walls, and several residential lot layouts. Over the past several years, development of Portola Center has involved a complex grading operation, including the exchange of millions of cubic yards of dirt, a total of 4.4 million cubic yards of earthwork between all 3 project areas. Final design efforts associated with Portola Center Northeast have been evaluated, and the applicant is proposing to achieve greater cut and fill balance and minimize the amount of soil export. The proposed amended map would continue to retain many of the key features originally approved, including 223 lots, the required minimum lot sizes, the main entrance off of Glen Ranch Road and a secondary emergency entrance off of Glen Ranch Road, a half-acre private neighborhood park, and view protections for existing homes off of Malabar Road. Design refinements would include 1. Lengthening the project entry off of Glen Ranch Road, 2. Relocating the private neighborhood park, 3. Reconfiguring 2 lots, 4. Adding a 5-foot-tall retaining wall along Saddleback Ranch Road, and 5. Reconfiguring the cul-de-sac at the end of Whiting Ridge Drive. These refinements are discussed in greater detail in the staff report. Adjustments to the grading plan would include 1. Removing the 16-foot-tall soil nail wall below Malabar Road, lowering some walls by 2 to 3 feet, and raising other walls by 1 to 3 feet, raising selected building pads by 1 to 3 feet, lowering others, and leaving some as originally approved. It's important to note that building pads below Malabar Road have been adjusted to ensure views from homes on Malabar Road remain protected. The applicant met with residents to make sure their views would not be impacted as a result of the proposed changes. These adjustments are also discussed in greater detail in the staff report. This amendment, referred to as Amendment 2 to Tentative Tract Map 17300, ensures that key components of the originally approved tract map are retained. On October 12th, the Planning and Traffic Commission determined the amendment complies with the spirit and intent of the original tentative tract map approval. Members of the public spoke in favor of the project, as did a representative from Malabar Road. The Commission voted unanimously to recommend the City Council approve the amendment. The amendment would effectively change the tract map and grading plan, and it would enhance community design features as well as limit the amount of soil export required. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, do we have anybody from the public?
Omar Dandashi, followed by Stephen Haas.
I'm not sure this is working. It's out? It's on. Okay. Thanks. Good evening, Mayor and council members. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. I'm with Baldwin & Sons. I'm the project director presenting for you this evening. Any questions that you may have, we have our project development team as well as our engineer and landscape architect with us this evening. We're really excited about being present and all these changes that we have, and looking forward to our new phase for the next stage for the Portola project in the Oaks. So we'd like to keep adding the value to the community, and we're here to answer any questions.
Do you have any questions, Council?
I do.
Mayor Pro Tem Basil.
Okay. Hi there. I reviewed your amendments, and a few of them I definitely think is going to add to the beauty of the community, the walls that you're suggesting and such. I did have a couple of questions, though. On lot number 144, it's mentioning that it went up, I think, 3 feet from its original pad. And that particular lot, you know, I live in Portola Hills, and I'm still part of that HOA board. And a lot of the residents on Malabar, you know, our HOA was really instrumental in getting those pads down lower so that it wouldn't impact any of the views for those homes on Malabar. Mm-hmm. So I am a little concerned with that pad going up 3 feet on number 144. I would like to see that not go up. Is there a way that you could do that?
I need to, Marie, could you pull up 144 so I can see how close up? There is no difference in that elevation. So the houses along Malabar, we kept the lots at the same elevation as we had before, or we had some minor adjustments to actually drop them a little bit.
Okay.
So I'm not sure which one you're looking at, but
okay, because that's not what my report says. Here, hang on.
If you're looking at the table, one of the things that we did do is we renumbered the lots on the portion of the northeast. So the table refers to the old lot numbers, so you could use that with the approved tentative, and then the new lot numbers are adjacent to it.
Okay.
So I apologize if there's any confusion with that.
Okay, just a second. Just pulling it up. Okay, so I'm looking on the staff report, page 333, and it shows a graph, and the graph, or a chart, and it says proposed lot number 144, existing approved lot number 226, original height 1186 feet, new proposed pad height 1187.5 feet. That brings it up 1.5 feet. And it may not mean a lot to a regular person, but it may mean a lot to the person whose home is directly above that.
Excuse me, Councilwoman Basil. The report you're referring to is the Planning Commission report. And between the time that the project went to Planning Commission and has come before you, the applicant has done some additional refinements, and they have met with the property owners Those refinements have resulted in the table that is attachment 7 of your staff report.
Page number?
It's attachment 7 of the staff report.
Okay.
I could bring it to the dais if you'd like. I have a copy handy here, and you can take a look at that. But
So in other words, you've taken consideration of the people up above that you're not going to impact their views.
That is correct. Yes.
So you've kept them the same as they were. So her concern was that you raised one, but you haven't.
Our intent was to keep exactly the same or actually have a small betterment.
Okay.
As well.
Okay, yeah, I'm looking at the item, it's, separate attachment. That was very confusing to read it in one place and it's completely different somewhere else. I want to make sure that these numbers aren't going to be moved around, you know what I mean? It's a big concern for protecting those views on those homes. It's critical. So
we completely understand that, and everything that we've done with staff to date is what you're seeing consistently in that second table.
okay, good. My other question was on the entrance.
Yes.
When you first pull into the community, I like that you have changed it from 3 check-in points to the one primary and extending the road. That was really good. My concern is the island on the inside once you get in. I checked with staff. It looks like that island is 26 feet across, and the road lanes are 14 feet across. That's a huge median. And coming from living in Portola Hills and having all the issues we had with our islands on Saddleback Ranch Road, I really can't see. Okay, say someone pulls in like a giant moving van or even a very large fire truck, and they're going down Heritage Oak Drive, and they're going to try to make a right to go up into Viejo Ridge Drive. Try moving a huge big rig to hit that turn. It's going to be hilarious. I think that these medians, I'm sure they're going to be beautiful, but I really would like to see the medians a little bit smaller, just for the sake of larger vehicles getting in. As an example, I was driving up Alton one day, and I actually got stuck on Alton because a giant truck was trying to get their moving van in on one of the, I think it was Dimension, I don't remember which one has the medians, and the streets are real narrow. It was hilarious watching this poor moving van try to back up and move. It was impossible. There was no place for him to go. And I can just see there being problems with this. So I'm asking if you guys would consider narrowing that median.
We would. Yeah, we're happy to work with staff, and we can come up with an appropriate width. And just as a side note, we do run truck turning templates to make sure that we can get fire trucks or moving trucks through an area.
Okay.
So that's part of what we work on with staff.
Okay, that's really critical because we were told that Saddleback Ranch Road was acceptable, and it really wasn't. So looking at the naked eye, what I saw problems with Saddleback Ranch Road, I can see that there would be problems here. So I appreciate you considering that. It's very good. And then as far as, sorry, last one, guys. This is my community, so I'm really passionate about it. I like the soil nail wall arrangement. We have a lot of slope issues up in Saddleback Ranch Road. We had a huge failure on one of our slopes. It was, I think they were the Baldwin homes, and it cost the community $1.5 million to fix the slope failure. I want to make sure that the homes that are directly above on Malabar are not going to be impacted, that this is the best thing that you can possibly do to make sure that we don't have any slope erosion on those homes on Malabar.
That is correct. I mean, removing the soil nail wall is actually a big benefit, not to have any impacts back to the residents.
Okay.
And the way it has to be constructed. So that's one of the improvements that we hope to get through.
Is this a typical way that you do this, or would you say that this is the average way that you maintain the slopes? Is it more aggressive? Is this something new that you're doing? Can you explain this soil nail wall?
So the soil nail wall was part of the original tentative map, and it was intended to actually catch the grades that are going to be adjacent to where the cul-de-sac is at the top of the community, the closest street to Malabar.
Okay.
By our refinement, we have moved that street further away, and now with that distance, we don't need the wall anymore, and so we've eliminated it and just turned it into a graded slope, which would be a better condition.
Okay. And I have one last question. I'll be quick. Tonight, as I was getting in my car, my neighbor across the street came over and mentioned to me that he has just gotten the 8th nail in his tire, and he drives down Saddleback Ranch Road, and he's getting it. He takes it Saddleback, makes a right down Glen Ranch, so he corners the other Baldwin homes that are being built. And I've gotten two, my husband's gotten two, and I was collecting nails and screws for a while and giving it to staff because we're getting a lot. What I want from Baldwin, because where they're saying they're gating it, it's pretty obvious that it's coming from that community. I want to hear something from you guys, what you're going to do to try to prevent future nails in people's tires up in Portola Hills.
So what we currently do is we do street sweeping daily, and we also inspect for nails out there. And oftentimes we actually use a magnet to do it. What I would suggest we do is continue to do that, but I'd love to talk to the residents and help them, make them whole.
I have quite a few.
Yes, and unfortunately, we're very well aware that staff has worked with us very closely, and we're happy to deal with any of the residents that have that. It's rather unfortunate. We're not looking to have any of these issues, but occasionally I think something might come off of a truck. But all of our work is within the boundaries of the property, and so we're not actually doing anything on the streets anymore, but we continue the street sweeping and perusing for nails. And so we'll continue to do that, but we're open to being contacted by any of the residents that have an issue.
I would like your contact information because he actually asked for it.
Okay.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Sure.
That's all I've got. Thanks.
Thank you.
So I have a question. Could you go to the map, Mayor Pro Tem, and show us the narrowing? I don't know if I want to make sure I follow along.
I don't think everybody has what Mayor Pro Tem Basil has.
I asked the staff to include it.
What?
It's in your folder. It's in your folder with the yellow red connection.
It's one page?
It's the very first page after the yellow cover.
Where is this map intersection in conjunction with the overall site? Is there another page behind it?
It's going to be at the entrance.
So on our map is, I don't want to map this, is Glen Ranch down at the bottom, right? No, on this map? Is that on the bottom?
Yeah.
Okay. So your issue is the medians on that cross street, not the main entrance, because there aren't any.
The meeting's on the inside.
Okay. Because I want to make sure that, part of the issue was speed, and that's why we had, the larger medians on Saddleback Ranch Road. But they're all stop signs. I mean, there's stop signs everywhere except it doesn't look like there's a stop sign exiting the development.
There's a stop sign on all of
Okay. Okay. Also, was it page 356 was the attachment? 7?
Unfortunately, I don't have the packet that you have, but it would be attachment 7, and it's essentially a table that indicates the proposed lot numbers under the proposed tentative map, the elevations for each building pad, and what the difference between the originally approved pad and the proposed pad is. So it's essentially a chart with 5 columns, multiple rows.
It looks like this.
Yes, that's the one I have. So if I understood correctly, the Mayor Pro Tem had an issue on the elevation increasing.
But it's not.
On lot 144.
But there are many other pads that are increasing.
Well, there are some that are increasing and some that are decreasing. The main concern had to do with the lots just below Malabar Road. One of the conditions of approval, or rather during the discussions of the original approval, the applicant worked very closely with those residents to make sure that their views would not be impacted. So when this amendment first came in and it went to Planning Commission, 3 of those lots were being raised a maximum of 1.5 feet. One was being raised by 7 inches, another 9 inches, and one was 1.5 feet. Others were remaining the same or were being lowered. Out of concern for, even though raising them that amount would not impact the views because of the difference in grade, the applicant continued working with the homeowners and refining the plan so that by the time it came to you, they were able to further refine the grades so that there is no change in how those particular lots were originally approved.
Okay, so if you don't mind, I just want to ensure that on that attachment 7, you can list out, I don't think there's many lots in there, and they're probably consecutive, which lots are the ones, because I think it's a small, according to this map.
It starts with lot 136 through 144. And those lots are either staying the same or being lowered.
Okay. And those are the only ones?
Well, those are the only ones that are specifically addressed by the Malabar homeowners, Malamar Road homeowners, out of concern for their views. There are other lots that are internal that have no impact on anyone else. And in those cases, some of them are being raised while others are being lowered or remain the same.
Do you have anything further?
I, too, received an email about the nails. So, you know, I'm definitely concerned about it, and staff, if you're, you know, reviewing and making sure that they're doing their job, or however the situation is getting to this, it just seems like there's, you know, definite concern there. So that would be my only other comment. And I just guess I want to just ask the Mayor Pro Tem, do you feel satisfied then with the lot heights?
Now that I see attachment 7 and it's giving me the numbers I was looking for, I'm a lot more comfortable with it.
So I'm going to make the motion that we accept staff recommendation that we approve these amendments. Do we have any other public speakers?
The other speakers from Baldwin as well, Stephen Haas.
Okay. Do we want to hear it? But okay, we'll come up with the rest of the speakers.
Stephen's fine. He was just here to answer any questions
so
that was necessary.
On that, I'll make the motion that we accept staff recommendation. And I like Mayor Pro Tem's suggestion that the island, many times we use the island, and pork chops that we've done, and Portola Hills is familiar with that, is the calming of the traffic, just slowing of the traffic. But considering there's a stop sign right there anyways, and it's the entrance of the community, I think a little bit more access would be kind of nice. But I think that the aesthetics, what you're trying to do, can be done with a little bit less footage on the island. So I love that. I like that you took in consideration and kept your oath and not blocking the views of the existing pads up above. And so with that, I make the motion that we accept staff recommendation of the amendment. So
with the caveat of
those changes. Yeah.
Do we want to say
no? We got
plus or minus 50% or what?
Motion. If I can get a second.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Please cast your votes.
That motion passes unanimously.
And I'll close this public hearing.
And don't forget to give me your contact information.
I'll be waiting. Okay, we're here.
And while you're there, is there any framing going on Glen Ranch or Saddleback Ranch Road? There would be nails impacted on the street there?
We have ongoing home building in the northwest part of the project.
No, okay. Thank you, sir.
All right, you're welcome.
Have a happy Thanksgiving. Thank you, Baldwin.
Our next items are Veterans Park Discussion items 11A and B, proposed design and budget for Veterans Monument at Veterans Park, and potential community outreach regarding Veterans Park, both submitted by the Director of Community Services.
Mayor and members of the council, we have a presentation from Community Services Director Scott Wasserman on items A and B.
Thank you, City Manager Rose. I'm going to spend about 30 seconds just sort of catching us up on how we got to where we are. And then I'm going to turn it over to Perry Cardoza from Nuvis Landscape Architecture. Perry is going to present the conceptual design this evening for the proposed Veterans Monument. As the council's aware, we're in the process of renovating the park. And at your meeting of July 18th, the City Council voted unanimously to change the name of the park from Village Pond Park to Veterans Park. City Council also directed staff to work with a resident committee to come up with a monument or some kind of a design to recognize veterans at the park. And the City Council subsequently approved a budget not to exceed $100,000 for the proposed monument. As city staff and Perry Cardoza from Nuvis Landscape Architecture, we've met 4 times with the resident committee, very enthusiastic bunch, and this evening we're here to present the conceptual design that they came up with. And you'll note in the report here, we have a design that was initially accepted, and at the very last meeting, it did not include an American flag or a flagpole. At the very last meeting, the committee felt strongly that they wanted to include an American flag. And for that reason, as I've indicated in the report, that would actually be an additional $3,000 over the budget that the City Council approved. That would bring the total project cost to $103,000. Staff is recommending the inclusion of the flagpole for the City Council's consideration because it is consistent with what one might see at other veterans monuments. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Perry Cardoza.
Thank you, Scott. Mr. Cordovas, first of all, I got to compliment you on the picture with the no housing behind the lake there. The fog bank stops right on the other side of the pond, so I had to make that comment.
Artistic license, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr.
Mayor,
Cordovas, thanks
council, staff, and those committee members that are behind me that we have worked with to come together and solve the problem and to provide the city with an alternative and honoring our veterans, I think, has been one of the joys of being a designer. And one of those elements, I think, that I hope will translate into the solution that we've all come up with as a collaboration. Some of the things and the elements that I'd like to talk about and touch upon that were important to the committee, and again, as we facilitate the ideas that were generated in those public forums, were the elements and the 5 distinct elements on how we would recognize the 5 branches of the military. And in looking through a lot of resources, obviously this has been done many, many times over and over in all over different parts of the country, and looking at inspiration and inviting inspiration from the committee members to give us ideas, because really this is their park. Some of the things, or their memorial that's in part of the park, some of the things and the ideas that were generated I thought were very unique and very spiritual in nature. Some of the things that we wanted to create in this design, originally there was no American flagpole in the center. Although we know that traditionally that is part of all memorials and honoring our veterans, the way that we decided to address this was to create these American flags that were on top of each of the pedestals. And those would be done in mosaic tile and representative, similar to of the folded flag that you have in your showcase here at the entry of the chambers. And so by doing that, that would be honoring each individual branch in lieu of the flag, because we were trying to be creative with budget amounts that we were looking at. So in some of the diagrams you'll see that, and that was the reason why originally we did not have that. part of the plaza, again, in how we situated, we came up with several alternatives on how to place the plaza, but really the overriding feature was to create this vision so when you're sitting and looking at each of these memorials of the branches, that you would look through those and onto the water. And so we were trying to create this view vista that was very pleasing to anyone that was there, not only to honor and memorialize the different branches, but to almost in meditation sit around the flagpole, or in another scenario we have a tree. But the idea was that you can see all of those in your view and look past those into the water feature on the lake, the beautiful lake beyond. The design and, again, the location of this fits naturally with the current plans that Nuvis has done for the 5-acre park. So in looking at trying to be smart on where we have the plaza so we don't have to repeat grading, we already have trees in the area. All we had to do was move an existing picnic table that was there in this flat lawn area, so we are not disturbing a lot of irrigation and a lot of planting, so it seemed to fit naturally in this location. The one element on the right, the standalone monument, is the monument representing the city, and you'll see that in further, and you probably have seen that in your presentation, is that we want to give the city giving thanks to those 5 branches as well. Some of the plant elements that we were looking at, again, we're looking at ground cover roses as being part of the plant palette. We have some plant materials that are very similar at the front entry of the park along Ridge Route, and so it's not that foreign to have this plant material in there as part of, again, the overall park. And I think it's important that this little plaza in memory does fit as part of the original design and not as an afterthought. So the paving, the materials, the colors, those are happening in the nodes that are adjacent to the water. So these same plazas in the same shape and form are already reminiscent within. So there's really not something special in the fact that at least the ground planes work together as continuity. The trees and the landscape all fit. It's just the individual pilasters and monuments themselves.
Perry, before you move forward, you want to comment on the center and the tree real quick?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the alternative then, this was the basis of a previous alternative that we had presented at one of our workshops in lieu of the American flag, seeing that we had the American flag mosaic folded flag on each of the monuments, that we would have a heritage tree as part of the shade and part of the composition of this plaza. So there's nothing saying that we can't, in addition to this, add an American flag somewhere else as part of the composition, but in the case of adding the folded flags, that was our representation of the American flag. In plan view, this is what it looks like. I don't know if a pointer will work, but Ridge Route is coming along the top. There's the main entry to the park. There's 2 flanking secondary entries to the park. One of the things that we talked about was visibility and patrol for police, and we wanted to not bury this so far into the park that it wouldn't be hard to access and hard to maintain and to visually patrol. So having it close in this area, it seemed like a natural solution. The one picnic table, the round circle to the right, that was originally, there was another one in the center. We just moved things around, the grading, it just, this cove feel fits natural to with the existing design, so we thought it was not throwing good money at bad. So that was the reason. You can see a little bit of a blow-up. The American flag folded on the top, some of those details. We worked with an artist for over 10 years on other parks for the city of Anaheim, Huntington Beach, creating these mosaics. The idea of maintenance and having someone, the fear of tagging, was all in our part of our design processes. So by having the glass tile put in, it's hard. You can't hit it with, you can hit it with a hammer, but you're not going to do anything with it because it's concrete backed. And so if it's tagged, it's wipeable. We're working with the same company that works with the city on their entry monumentation, but we're going to have these, we can't afford granite for our bases, and when you Google search a lot of these monuments, you'll see that marble and granite is the normal materials. We're going to use a really high density concrete with buffed and shined and polished and hardened edge and finish. So if that is tagged also, it's wipeable. So we want to create that look of $1 million, but we want to put it into the art form as part of this American flag. And we have not seen this anywhere. This will be a first. And I think that was important also to remember our veterans as being unique and having something for the first time and not just copying something that some other city or park has done. Some of the blow-ups of how we are approaching, again, these will be made almost as a typical. They'll be made in a shop. The plaque, the only plaque will be the emblem itself, and the rest will be out of concrete. And so again, we will save on cost and on maintenance. But we're not sacrificing the beauty, and I don't want to make it sound like we're going cheap on this. We're not. We're really honoring our veterans and doing the best we can with this budget and trying to create something that's lasting and memorable. And this is the last one for the city that we have talked about, and having the city of Lake Forest honors all who have served as a memorance. All of these will have an uplight on them as part of the plaza, and at that's I'm open to questions.
All right. Bring it back to council, and then we'll go to public comments. Council.
I had a question about the flag. By the way, I attended a couple of those meetings.
Yes.
And you really did a good job orchestrating it, and I think you really got what people were saying. So thank you for that. You held good meetings, and you guys really productive. My question is about the flagpole. I'm concerned. I think the flag, it makes it really beautiful, and it's staff recommendation, it makes a lot of sense. My only thinking is the residents that are all around the foggy areas in the background, they may see the backlighting for the flag. I don't want this to be disruptive to the residents that are currently living there. I believe there was a proposal for a flag that actually raises and lowers itself.
There was, and we did a lot of research on that. The reason we're recommending a manual flag with a light on it, I had concerns about the automatic flagpole. If something breaks, I think we have to get a whole new flagpole. I don't know if it's something where we can get parts. I don't know where the parts come from. There are some municipalities that have installed it where it's been reliable. I'm just not entirely convinced. And it's considerably more expensive. It's about $13,000.
Now, as far as the backlighting goes, how is it going to be lit where it would have the least impact on residents?
So the park will have lighting itself, so there'll be, and that's one of the beauties of the new design, is the ADA accessibility. From before, it was impossible to traverse, sort of one end to the other. You're walking through the grass and up and down the slopes and whatnot. So a part of the improvements is pathway lighting that's happening. So our thought is between street lighting along Ridge Route, and this will be minor compared to, it's not like a ball field, lighting. It will be even more subdued than the pole lights that are happening with the safety and security of the park. So this will be on the ground, shining up, and it won't be ball field-esque at all.
Can you give me a perspective of like lumens, overhead, the street light lumen versus the light that's going to be backlit for that?
I can't, but I could follow up with you on that. I wouldn't be able to tell you in exact science. But I know what you're asking.
I'm thinking of the residents.
The uplights will be all low voltage, correct? Kind of like a Malibu light?
No, these will be LED.
LED, but
Right.
in the sense of a low voltage, we're talking about LED.
Yeah, we could put a lower, yes.
So you give us conceptuals that, it's like a uplight on a plant.
It would be an uplight on a plant.
Okay. So my question to you is, go back to the one with the signature, the heritage tree.
Yes.
Is that tree presently there?
No.
No. Do you have a tree that you guys would like to put in?
We would, more than likely, we would put an oak because that's similar to some of the other trees that have been donated in memorial, and just to keep a consistent feel for the park. So I would suggest an oak just for...
I love the flagpole, but my concern is, too, the neighbors. This is something that you mentioned in the beginning, that you surrounded yourself with the community. The committee wasn't the community that surrounds that duck pond. So the community has come out and concerned about the commotion, the lights, the traffic that it's going to get. I think that we've got to take in consideration of what the neighbors are going to think with an uplight that would be illuminating a flag at night. So I think that the low voltage uplights on the pilasters, pilasters there, I think that's not going to be a major concern to me, because we're going to have path lighting and we're going to have lighting throughout the park, and that's going to go on for 24 hours because we want to have some lighting on the park so we don't have vandalism. But it's my concern is an uplight on the flagpole would be a lot of illumination for the flag, and I think that we might have some pushback from the neighbors. But I think you've done a wonderful job. I think you've done a wonderful job. My concern is that the committee took a lot of time and spent a lot of time with you to help design this, and I love the folded flag on the top of each pilaster. I thought that was a great add. But back to the community, we had 3 or 4 public input meetings where the community came out and spoke and helped us design this, and then we, as a council, decided we were going to change things in midstream, that we're going to add this. I think that we've allocated and we've set aside $100,000 to do a memorial in this. And so I think that it's only fitting, being the former community of El Toro and next to the former Marine Corps Air Station El Toro, that we have a monument to those that have served our nation, because freedom is not free. And so many of the people who still reside in Lake Forest were former Marines or Navy because of the adjacent Marine Corps Air Station. I think that we owe it to our citizens who have served and served so valiantly that we have a place like this. I just don't know, because of the community that came out and spoke against it at the last time and said they just didn't have a say. So I think that my concern is that we're asking for $3,000 more to put a flagpole that's illuminated. We're just changing things again, and so I just don't know where we really should go with this. And so on the next item, we're going to talk about a community input. But I think that your design will be used somewhere, if not here, somewhere, because in conception, when we saw the plans and when we started talking about this, the staff went out and searched other monuments, veterans memorials, and they came with some ones, and I said, wow, I like that one. Oh, I like this one. I said, oh, why do we have to put the money for design? I like this one. But I think you learned every penny of your design work, because you've made something unique to Lake Forest. The flags on top of each pilaster is something that I just can't say enough of. I think that the color on top of the polished concrete would just be beautiful.
Thank you, sir.
I have nothing further. Seeing nothing further right now, I'm going to get the rest of the public comments, and maybe we'll have some more questions. Stay close.
Tom Cagley, followed by Connie Hughes.
I promise, my last time before you tonight. Mr. Robinson, in your invocation, you, among things, said to be passionate. I can be very passionate about this park, is what's designed. Your Honor, you're concerned about the view back there. We could put an tank back here and put a fog machine out so you don't have to worry about the footlights. That's a joke, sir. It's the community. First meeting we had, 8 people were there, not counting the 2 people to your left who were in the military, and 3 of them lived on that park. They were not totally out outlanders. I don't know what to do about people who do not understand or hear or pay attention. Somebody made a comment on the patch the other day that very few people read the patch. Fewer still read the Lake Forest Facebook page. Look how many are in the audience back here. Very, very few, relatively speaking. Unlike Saddleback Ranch Road, we've packed the room and the issues about the animal shelters. But this is an important park. I would like to put the angst of the residents to rest. There were concerns about there will not be any activities going on there like you attend every year at the El Toro Park when the cemetery puts on the two functions for Memorial Day and for Veterans Day. We're not going to have anything like that. This should just be a reflective park for people to go. The 5 monuments representing the 5 major services of the Department of Defense. There will be no static display. Mr. Gardner wanted to have a tank or an airplane out there, but we convinced him we didn't want those for the kids to crawl up on and put ourselves at risk, and it would crowd the area. It's not meant to be a static display of military. It's just a quiet, reflective place for people to go to, for veterans to go to. Now, you mentioned Navy and Marines. I'm Army, which you know that, I'm sure. So
I try not to hold that against you because I love all those that have served. So
I'm
thank you for your service.
I'm Secretary of the Marine Committee because they want somebody to pronounce 2-syllable words. But that's anyway, sir, that's all I got to say. I really encourage it. I want the flagpole. I encourage it. It should be there. But if you go another way, it won't affect me at all. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cagley. Thanks for your time.
Connie Hughes, followed by Sharon Oda.
Good evening, Connie.
Good evening. How are you? The reason I'm here is to talk about, well, first of all, I want to say how nice it is that finally we're doing something about the Village Pond Park. My husband and I have lived there 39 years. We live about 6 blocks away. We've raised 4 kids, and I have 12 grandchildren. I'd like to take the kids to the park. I haven't for 10 years. It's been pretty bad. But that got me thinking. We're dealing with some family health issues right now, so I'm on the email list for the park, but I don't scour it constantly, so I miss part of certain things. But I did get the last email, and I looked through the schematic, and one thing I noticed is there are no restrooms. Now, I thought it was pretty interesting that at 8 o'clock tonight, after 1.5 hours, we took a bathroom break here. Now, there are a lot of picnic tables, I noticed in the schematic, so I'm imagining myself taking 2 or 3 of my grandkids over there. We put out the picnic, and then somebody has to go to the bathroom. Oh, gee whiz. There's not another adult. I'll have to get everybody back in the car, and we'll probably have to go to McDonald's over on Ridge Road, or on Rockfield. It's just impossible to think that you're going to have picnic tables and usage, or that people are going to come. We're spending a ton of money. Aren't you spending over $2 million on this park? A lot of money, and essentially we're telling people you can't spend hardly any time. If anybody in your party needs to go to the restroom, you're out of luck. So I know that I saw that in July of 2017, just recently, you decided to add this. I would encourage you to tell whoever the architects are that the local people that want to enjoy the park, that want to come and read a book and want to relax and want to bring their grandkids and want to bring their children and want to spread out a picnic and maybe roll down the hill or go see the butterfly garden, that think about that. They can't hold it. And what are we going to do? So if we really want to enjoy the park, you're spending a lot of money. I would highly encourage you, we must have restrooms. So that's what I have to say. It's a basic human need. And at 8 o'clock, I couldn't have said it better myself when you asked for the
Thank you for your comments. And that's a wise thing. It is a public park, and we're having a memorial come. And many of the people that come may be senior citizens, and the fact is that there's no gas station right down the street to go. So that's something that we're going to have to address if we want this location. Thank you. That was a great plus.
Scott, can you talk about, because I think as far as the initial design for that park, the residents came in and said, we want these things, we don't want these things. Is that right?
Perry, I'll defer to you since I was not with the city during those meetings.
Thank you, Scott. Yes, that was true. There was no shade structures, restrooms, no active play. There was a lot of input from, I believe we had, I think, Dr. Gardner, you were present too at some of those, 3 total, and that was one of the elements, unfortunately, that was not wanted.
But it's a public park, and if people drive from Mission Viejo or Laguna Hills or Leisure World to come over and reflect on their time in the service, or a friend or a loved one who had served, and they have to use the restroom, and they're a senior citizen, they're going to, what are we going to do? And the fact that if someone goes to take their grandchildren, walks over there, what are they going to do?
I agree. I have small children.
We were adding an element that was going to be, now we're making this a destination. So you're making the Village Pond Park a destination where the people of the input of the community didn't want to make this a destination, didn't want people to come and stay at the park and enjoy the park or enjoy the reflection in the memorial and that. But now we're adding a memorial, so it's only right that if we go down this road that we're going to probably have to add bathrooms. Because senior citizens, what if they're a Vietnam vet or a Korean War vet? I mean, you're talking about older citizens that are coming to reflect on their time in service, but there's no restroom, and even though it's a public park, so we should have public restrooms.
Council, if I can interject briefly, a couple things to keep in mind. One is that we're in the middle of the renovation project. There's a feeling, I know when we did the neighborhood improvement plan, we toured the parks, a lot of folks that talked about restrooms, once they talked about it, they decided that they didn't want restrooms because it changes the character of the park. People stay longer, they stay later. There were concerns about parking and traffic. Real or perceived, that was sort of the feedback we got from the community. If council wishes to direct staff to explore the possibility of finding a place for a restroom, then I would recommend some extensive public outreach.
Mr. Wasserman, may I say that you've changed the diameter, the character of that park by adding a memorial. You've changed the whole concept of what the people came to express at the community input meetings, and now you're saying that we can't add a restroom because it would change the character or the usage.
I don't think that's true.
We're changing the usage.
I don't think that's true. That park has always been a destination park. When it was Village Pond Park...
It's not going to be for a grandmother?
When it was Village Pond Park, people came from all over because that was a park that had birds and ducks, et cetera, et cetera. It was never a neighborhood park. It was always a destination park. We've added another destination attraction to it, but it was always from the start.
So the memorial will be a destination?
Yeah. Well, and also the birds will continue, but it was a destination park. It's still a destination park. And while I agree with what you said about bathrooms, and when I started attending all those park workshops, we had 10 of them. My first thing was, why no bathrooms? And everybody said, no, we don't want drug addicts hanging out inside them. We don't want people staying there overnight. We don't want that. Everybody, everywhere we went, on all of those 10 and in Village Pond Park, people told us, don't put a restaurant, it'll only attract people. Now, it was counterintuitive to me, but that's what I heard everywhere.
But we didn't take the consideration of the neighbors in when we changed the atmosphere of the park by adding.
Well, that's not true either. I appeared, just wait a second.
Because you put it in your patch doesn't mean that there was a community.
No, not in the patch. I spoke at the homeowner association, which is right around there. On 2 occasions, someone else spoke. On a 3rd occasion, it appears in their newsletter. It appears in the minutes of their meetings. It was 2 articles in the Orange County Register. I mean, how much more could we have done?
Do we have anybody else on the
Sharon Oda, followed by Larissa Clark.
First of all, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
I I had this whole speech all written out and everything, and after I've heard everyone talk about the park, I kind of changed my speech a little bit. Okay, a lot. Let me start from restrooms. I was on the committee. I live on the park. My house is right there on the park. And for those of you who do not know what the park looks like, there are homes on either side of the park. And then there's Ridge Route and Respite. So the park is surrounded by houses, and I, for one, don't want to look at a restroom outside my kitchen window or on my balcony, okay? So when we were on the committee to redesign this park, a restroom was voted out because of, we didn't want, there were enough now of people with sleeping in the park overnight. We have a park across across Ridge Route. There's Mountain View Park, and I understand they're having a lot of problems because they do have a public restroom, and there's problems there. There's drugs there. There's people doing all kinds of things over there. We don't want that in our neighborhood park. This is not on a major thoroughfare. It's used by our community. It was meant to be a passive park. And my vote is that if you have to put a restroom in there, then we need to find another place for the Veterans Memorial. And that's all. I mean, if you're going to use it as people coming all day long and playing, that's not what the park was designed for. The park was designed to kind of meander around. It's very passive. And it's not a place where you're going to bring your picnic and your lounge chairs and just sit out there all day long. It isn't meant for that. So I beg you to either get no restrooms or replace the Veterans. I was all for the Veterans Park. And speaking of the Veterans Park, if you decide to keep it, could you decide that, if you have a tree in the middle of the plaza, trees attract birds. What do birds do? Okay, all over the place. So a tree, and then the flagpole, I agree with you wholeheartedly. We don't want a light shining in the neighbors' windows for the flagpole either. Can we have a plaza without anything? Maybe just an extra bench or something.
And mind you, that no matter we put the flagpole or the tree, this is still a duck pond. And the ducks, you know what they do too. And they're going to be walking all around here.
But that was the whole idea of our design, is to keep those ducks away. Okay? It was supposed to be designed to keep them away.
It's going to deter, correct, but not eliminate.
Yeah. Not eliminate, but we can, as the city, we can kind of manage.
Thank you for your comments. And I was just making the point that we changed things in midstream anyways.
Yeah.
So we're not proposing a restroom at this time. Thank you. Okay. Rest assured.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Larissa Clark, followed by Bob Holtzclaw.
Good evening. I was on the resident committee, but for the veterans portion. And I wanted to first commend Mr. Wasserman. The meetings that I attended, he did great. Nuvis did great. I thought that the public outreach was very informative. They were very patient. And we were told, the meeting that I was, we were told no against the restrooms, and they complied with what the residents were. I wanted a restroom, but I was outvoted. So that was that. The flagpole, I also have concerns about the light. And my other concern about the park is the destination, which I know that I've talked to you extensively about because of the traffic and the parking and things like that. But I do support the park, maybe a tree if you're going to get rid of the flagpole, but they're going to poo. And there are other places in the park, the butterfly garden and the hummingbirds, so I'd like to keep the park quiet and a place of solace, as we discussed. But if I'm outvoted on all of those, then so be it. People have spoke. And thought that the way that you talked to Mr. Wasserman was a little harsh, Mayor.
Thank you.
If you come to the meetings, you'd know what's going on.
Okay.
Bob Holtzclaw, followed by Martin Henderson.
Bob Holtzclaw, resident of Lake Forest and U.S. Army. Actually, I didn't know there was going to be this much discussion about this flagpole. Planting a tree there is going to attract birds, and we're going to have stuff all over those 5 monuments there, or actually 6. I want to say that to Scott, he did a really great job on this thing, and I really want to thank him for all, being, working with me, which is probably hard enough for already. But, I still think the flagpole is probably good. The automatic flagpole, I did a lot of research, and I could not find one that I could see. So I would go for the regular flagpole. The lighting below it, everybody's thinking this is something like one of the big spotlights that are up in a football stadium. That is kind of like what we're looking at. It's a light that just shines up right there. You'll probably have, I don't know, Scott can probably verify that it's got to be not much more than that. And if not, you can plant a tree, one of those trees around here that you still haven't planted anything, behind the flagpole, and you wouldn't see anything. You're going to have little lights behind each one of the monuments they're shining up, which is not going to be that much either. Probably what the people around the park right there will see more than anything else is the lights that's around the pond, more than anything else. So I'm strongly for the flag. It's an American flag, it's an American park, and I think it belongs exactly where it is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Martin Henderson, followed by David Glick.
Hello, Council. I wonder if you might be able to put the PowerPoint back up so we could see the diagram. I don't really expect my my observation about this to be given much credence. I've been in the media for 35 years, so I think of things a little differently than you guys do and probably the people behind me. I see this as an opportunity for people to gather, and obviously it's a destination park. It was Destination Park when it was Village Pond Park. People are going to come, they're going to want to take pictures and whatnot. Where are you going to take a picture if you have a group photo? If you take a picture next to the, if you've got different people from different militaries, or different branches, if you put it next to the one that says City of Lake Forest and honors all those who serve, people will be facing the middle, and the pictures will be facing Ridge Route, so they'll be looking at cars in the background. If there's a flagpole, you won't get a picture of the flag in any sort of picture. And maybe the answer to the flagpole is putting it at the edge of the lake in the background. And I don't know if the lake is going to have an island or not, but certainly that would be an option as well. I do see a need for a low-profile restroom. As I recall, as you're heading from Rockfield up Ridge Route, there's that little berm, and then there's a large hedge, and then there's the park. If you were to put a restroom right there on that edge, it would be out of sight for the most part, and it would be fairly low profile. It would provide an opportunity for people who are in need. I spoke on this when you guys were talking about whether or not to rename the park, and I said then you have one chance to get it right. And that's still true. You only have one chance to get this right. And you need to take everything into consideration. I feel for the people who live around the park, but it was always a destination park. And it's understandable that they that they take ownership of it. But it's also a park for people who don't live right around the park. It's a destination place, and it's a place to reflect, and I think there's some changes that need to be made for picture opportunities and things like that. And when you have your grand opening, where are you going to stand? Where's the picture going to be taken? Okay, now maybe you move the monument that's on the right into the middle and turn it around so that everybody stands in the plaza around it, and you've got the lake in the background, and a flag maybe on the water's edge or something like that. But right now, unless you're standing right next to a specific monument, you really don't have much of a photo op.
Good points.
Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments.
David Glick.
Mayor, council, staff, David Glick, resident of Lake Forest. Just a couple of items. First of all, I'm going to speak for the community. I'm truly excited to have this eyesore gone. It's going to, beautify the area. Again, being the destination park that it is, Village Poop Park really wasn't really something that most families would like to go to. One thing I haven't heard up here, and this is what worries me the most, is it was never maintained, right? We all know that based on our poop park. I haven't heard anything about our maintenance or our cleaning and what we're going to do. Are we going to step it up, or are we going to have veterans disrespected because these columns are full of duck poop? That bothers me. So if we have the same maintenance crew and procedures we had before, it's not going to work. And if we had, I'm not going to get into what we've seen in the past and how it was cleaned, but we're having all this nice material being placed that can be, I'm sure, ruined quickly by our waste of animals. Regarding the lighting issue on Lake Forest 1, we've had homeowners that were up in arms when we added lights to the community in and around the lake. Outroar. Came to the board meetings, screamed. I'm just giving you heads up on that. I'm against, I would not like to see a restroom, again, because I never had the restroom. It's not a park that's where you're going to bring the family for 2, 3, 4 hours. Again, you have Mountain View Park, which is a block away. Again, we have a lot of crime there, but again, that's also more of a sports area where people will have their birthday parties and spend a longer day there. I'm all for the flag, which I'd love to see. But again, really all I have to say is just I don't want to disrespect the veteran park with, if we don't keep it up in cleanliness. So that's my take. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
You weren't here at the meeting when it came up and we first talked about it. But when we first proposed the park, I specifically asked the city manager whether or not the city would take on the responsibility, given that it was a veterans park, of making it the most pristine park in the city, and she committed to doing that. So that's one of the advantages. It's awful that you have to make a park a veterans park to keep it clean, but that's one of the advantages of moving towards a veteran park, is that the city's aware of that and has offered to give her left finger if it wasn't kept clean. So,
how generous you are, Madam City Manager. So, is there anything further for the public?
No further requests, sir.
Okay, I'm going to close this public hearing down. The potential for outreach regarding Village Pond Park, is that it's not a public hearing? That's just about.
Neither items are public hearing, and I did call the titles together, so
okay.
I believe it's staff's understand that you're talking about them collectively.
Okay, so why don't you read item number 2B to item number 11.
Item 11B, potential community outreach regarding Veterans Park, submitted by Director of Community Services.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, members of council, I don't have much of a further report on this item. This is something that the City Council voted to agendize, and I'm available to answer any questions about outreach that we've done in the past, if you have some.
Okay, typically when we do changes in community parks, or this is our Civic Center, that we anytime we have a change, we usually inform the neighbors, the residents in a 500,000 or 1,500, how many feet radius?
Depends on the park. Usually we'll do about 500.
500 feet? So 500 feet from surrounding that park. Were any notifications given that we were changing the name to Veterans Park, or we were going to add a monument to the park?
On the change of the name, I don't believe that we did any notification. But on the monument, we did do notification. We did notification after the City Council directed staff to work with the committee. We did notifications of the first meeting. We did notifications for this particular meeting this evening through Constant Contact. We sent emails to the Design Committee, Constant Contact. Those are the members, a lot of residents around the project area that have signed up. It's about 158 people. We sent an email to the original email list that we had from 2013. That was from the original park workshops. And the city also advertised it on Twitter and Facebook, and there was a press release that was published in our town in the Orange County Register. That was all done for this evening.
Yeah, how much of it was mail?
This was all email. This was all email. And in the past, people have said that they would prefer to get the information through email, and that's one of the reasons that we set up Constant Contact.
I imagine a lot of people that surround that Village Pond Park, they've been living there since the 60s. They may not have email.
This is possible, yeah. I have no way to know it. That's certainly possible.
Those are the ones living in the cave?
No. Just the one living in the fog. In the fog bank. Council.
So just responding to some comments made by one of the public commenters, we're the ones that made this decision. It wasn't the staff. So, Mr. Wasserman, thank you for the amount of time that you've put into this. I think that it looks better than I'd expected. There are some elements that I would tweak here and there, but that's not for me to decide. I think that you've done an admirable job of doing what we unanimously decided to do in July. So if we have a problem with our own decisions, then each one of us need to take ownership of that. If we want to start talking about, did we feel that there was adequate communication? I really wish we would have discussed that in July when we voted on this in the first place, and not 5 months later when it's finally being brought back to us because some residents aren't happy. Newsflash to all of us, anything we do up here will not have 100% support from the community.
Yes.
No question about that, okay? I listen to each public commenter, and I'm also listening to those in the community that have a differing opinion. And you know what? As I mentioned in my invocation this morning, or when the meeting started, we should have that passionate discussion here at that mic, here at this dais. And when the community isn't participating, I think that's a bad thing. But I think it is very poor governing if we are constantly reevaluating the decisions we make here after hiring consultants, after spending tons of staff time, and then saying, we're going to go back to square one. So we need to get our act together up here if that's what's going to happen. We need to do it right at the beginning. I feel like we've communicated pretty well. I think the intentions were very clear from the get-go. I'm sorry that not everybody had the opportunity to come here, or maybe the opportunity is not the word. Everyone didn't show up here, or if they did, they felt like we didn't do what they wanted, right? There are other people that came to that mic who feel that we did exactly what they wanted. So right now, I'm prepared to move forward on 11A, and I don't think that we need to have a discussion about 11B, but that's just my opinion. I'll let everyone else talk before making any motions.
I agree with you, and I have a couple of comments on the 11A thing. Some of the things I'd like to reconsider. That monument, the Lake Forest Monument, that's the number 6 monument in the back. That got introduced at the last minute, and although I've been at all the meetings, I, generally speaking, am pretty quiet, except for the time I talked about the tank. The tank, I wanted the tank. But the rest of the time, I'm pretty quiet. And so I didn't bring this up at the meetings. It's not my place to bring that up. But I thought, we're going to have a sign outside, Veterans Park, City of Lake Forest, blah, blah, blah. I think the monument is kind of redundant. I don't think we need a second monument saying the city's doing this because the entranceway will say that. And that's my feeling about the second monument, or that monument at all. I'm torn between the flag and the tree. I know the tree will attract birds, but there must be, let's see, where's Perry left? Oh, there. There must be 100 trees there, or 200 trees there. So one more tree is not going to...
No, and we got ducks, too.
No, I know. Yeah, it's not the ducks, it's the bird.
Well, I said ducks will be walking.
I like the tree. The committee originally had the idea of it being contemplative, place to go and contemplate. I think the tree adds more to that than the flagpole does. On the other hand, I like the flagpole. And yet I'm thinking, because we've put the flagpole elements brilliantly into the monuments, I feel as if we've covered the flagpole and the tree is better. That's my feeling on the tree. I'm a little... If we decide to get rid of that city patent itself on the back monument, we might put a couple of more benches there, because I'm a little worried that the benches we have there don't fit all that many people. So I'd rather see some benches back there so that more people could go with that. But those are my comments. I think Martin said something about there's no place to take a picture, but I think generally speaking, if I'm from the Army, from Colonel Cagney, and in the Army, he's going to take a picture next to the Army one, when the Marines are going to take a picture next to the Marine one.
So are you making that into a motion with those changes?
Okay. Let's do it one at a time. Then I'll move that the tree replace the flagpole.
For the future discussion, I'll second that.
I'll make a few comments. I do like some of the comments made, and I think we should have a picture, kind of more picturesque spot. So, if it's possible to move the pole back, I don't know. I think a tree around. Tree kind of maybe on the water's edge with
Put the flag on the water's edge.
Yeah, I don't know. I've grown to appreciate Councilman Robinson's disdain for poles when you talked about street poles or street lights. So I don't know. I'm leaning more toward the tree, but I think it's a good idea to make it more photo. We have I don't know what the timing of this is, but and it might be on hold, but the city of Irvine is putting a veterans cemetery extremely close to this location. We're talking like 2 miles. Yeah, but it's we're in for the long haul here, so it might not be in a couple years or 10 years or something, but this is going to be a permanent structure for hundreds of years or what. So I don't know. I don't mind slowing this down a little bit and going and sending some mail. I'll admit I didn't think of that. I value the outreach, and we've had some citizens say, they didn't like the renaming of it. That's fine. I know that we won't get a consensus, we won't get 100% on that, but, you know, if someone feels like they haven't been included, I feel like inclusion is good, so, but I, at the same token, respect your comments. I think it is important to try to think of everything up front, and I'll admit, I missed it. I didn't get that, so I think that we should get a policy that, you know, we do send out notices via mail for a lot of projects, and it just seems kind of odd to me that we don't have, I know we're not required by law to send for this, but it just seems like to me that we should be consistent. And so
The discussion's on the flag or the tree. I mean, we could
I know.
have that discussion
I know
later, and I don't mind doing that.
It's a permanent thing. So I would say move the tree back to the what's I don't know. I'm not a design professional, so I don't have it. Just I heard.
Okay, there was a motion made and seconded that we were going to add the tree and give us some shade there for the seniors.
I think it meets the more contemplative idea that they had for it. And you know, if we decide to stay with the flagpole, I think that's good too. It's good or better in my mind. It's not right or wrong. I just think the tree is more in keeping with contemplative, quiet, passive behavior.
Okay, there's been a motion made and seconded on the tree, so please cast your votes.
Is your motion just the
Yeah,
tree
add the tree.
or a
Yeah,
tree
just the
in the
tree.
center?
Just the tree right there in the center. Yeah.
Tree in the center.
Yeah. Approximately 4 feet from the right curve. The second picture.
Is there a second to that motion?
Yeah.
Sorry, okay.
That motion passes with Mayor Pro Tem Basil and Councilmember Hamilton opposed.
Okay.
I like the flag. You know, I don't think we're going wrong with either one. I just think the tree was more in keeping. My second motion would be that we remove that sixth monument.
I'll second that.
I just think it's redundant, and we have that in the name of the park, and that brings the cost down. Not that I'm doing it to bring the cost down.
Okay, it's been motion been made and seconded.
Was there opinion by the committee?
No, actually, this is something that I got phone calls between the third and fourth meeting from about 3 people suggesting that we have something like this, so I just added it in there. And I announced in the fourth meeting, I know none of you talked about this. This is why I added it. You're free to take it out. They didn't take it out, and that's why it appears here. So my feelings certainly will not be hurt if you pull that out.
Okay, motion made and seconded.
I think I would go with the committee.
They said no.
No, they didn't take it out.
They didn't put it in. See, motion made and seconded. Please cast your votes.
That motion passes with Councilmember Hamilton opposed.
Yeah.
Maybe as part of the design alternative, we can etch those words into the concrete, so there is something that memorializes that as a gift or part of the.
I love that
city.
idea.
And then we don't have to.
You know, incentivized to keep up with the promise made by the city manager that there's going to be pristine park by us making sure that pavement's clean around those.
Yes, sir.
No duck droppings.
Mayor and Council, if that's something that you would like to see, it would be better for the record if there was actually a motion and a second on that.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we memorialize the Lake Forest and honor those that have served our nation in etched concrete around the memorial.
I'll second.
Please cast your votes.
That motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
It's so nice to have a designer here with us. Thank you. It's so.
My third comment would be to add a couple of benches in the back there, because I think They got like 3 people, maybe you could fit 5 people there.
How many benches are there now? We have a table, round table. We have 2 round tables, don't we?
That curved bench there will hold at least 8 people.
Oh, 8?
Yeah.
8 people sitting?
Sitting
like this?
Not necessarily, no.
Is that going to be a concrete?
It's concrete.
Could we add a foot on each side?
Sure we could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And the motion, you can make the motion, and we'll add a foot to each side.
Add a foot.
To each side. Thank you. And I'll second that. Please cast your votes.
And finally, the thing that came up during all these discussions that I don't think the committee...
That motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
I don't think the committee ever had a consensus on the plaques, that people could buy a plaque and for their son or their daughter. Or,
As far as my recollection, one of the meetings is that the problem with those bricks is that they could be trickling in over year, and then the maintenance cost of having to go over there and put one in, it would have just been way too much work for the city to have to do that as it trickled down over the years. That was
something for a future.
Okay, that brings us to the city manager's report.
I definitely have nothing further this evening.
Okay, who's next on my list? Councilman Gardner.
How could I follow that with adding anything?
Okay, Councilman Hamilton.
Hope everyone has a great Thanksgiving.
Councilman Robinson.
So I won't let everyone get off that easy. But I'm going to try to keep it somewhat brief and definitely relevant. One of the public commenters earlier tonight mentioned that, I'm paraphrasing, but basically they were just frustrated by the Planning and Traffic Commission process. And this frustration is something that I'm seeing in government at all levels across the country, that people feel like typically they're being told to go to one agency or one department or one commission or what have you, and they feel like it just takes forever for their issue to get resolved. I think it starts with an expectation that every issue is going to get resolved, and I don't think that's the case. But I think that it's important that people are constantly reminded of what purview each government body has, what its mission is, and in some cases, what it can't do because it's not scheduled, it's not budgeted, what have you. There's a lot of people that could come up to this mic and ask us to do a lot of things. I know one thing that we kind of batted around was the discussion of bathrooms. I know a bathroom in Central Park has been estimated at over $6 million for one bathroom because of various issues, right? And maybe the city of New York would have $6 million for a bathroom. Clearly, the city of Lake Forest would not. But it doesn't mean that people's voice shouldn't be heard. But I think that they really need to understand, again, what that mission is and what the commissions, what the council can do and can't do. And I think that that's something that needs to be repeated, because a lot of people come to city council meetings or they come to commission meetings and they don't always necessarily know what can occur. It may be the first time that they've ever come to the mic. Maybe they come a few times a year, but they really don't understand what we can do. They might come to the mic during public comment and they think that we're going to resolve their issue right there. And clearly we can't do that. Brown Act doesn't allow us to do that. But the same thing could happen at a commission. And so I think it's really important to do. We talked about lists, and I know that during the budgeting process this year, the city manager and the staff put together what they felt the commission could do this year, what it had from a budgetary standpoint, and then there were, I think, maybe 3 major focus items that they had for the year. That doesn't mean that residents can't come and talk about specific issues. And you know what? Some of them are very simple and can be addressed very quickly. Others are going to take a lot of time. And some of them we have no control over at all. If you want us to change the speed limit on a particular street, we're preempted by the state government. They tell us how and when we can do that. Why? Because there are people like Brosco P. Coltrane, right, from Dukes of Hazzard, and they used to change speed limits and write tickets and all that kind of stuff, right? And lots of other reasons why that can't happen. But so there are some things that we can never do. But I think that it's important that residents really understand that so that they don't leave feeling like, well, I got my 3 minutes, but nothing happened. Nobody cared. I go home, and now I'm more frustrated with government than I was before. So I'm not really sure exactly how to address that, but I felt like this was the appropriate time for me to communicate that in a public setting. And I'll continue to work with the staff on ways in which I think that we can help alleviate some of the frustration. Again, it doesn't mean that you're going to get everything that you want, because as we found tonight and as we find in every single meeting that we have, there are people on both sides of an issue. And that means that someone's not going to get what they want. Sometimes up here we don't get what we want. Fortunately, this year I think we've been able to find some really good compromise so that we all feel pretty good about where we're at. And that's good governing in my mind. But people leaving and feeling like nobody cared, nobody listened, or I don't know what's going to happen to my issue now. I think this is a very systemic problem that I see around the country. I think that we've got a little bit better this year, and that's all I can ask for is incremental improvement, but I think that we need to continue making those steps forward. So I'm going to put that challenge on all of us, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Councilman. Mayor Pro Tem Basil.
I won't say all that. Don't worry. We'll get out here in a few minutes. But very good points. I mean, Dwight really, he's nailed it a few times tonight with his comments. What I would like to say is going back to Veterans Park. And I've attended several city staff meetings, or resident-focused meetings. But I got to say, attending those meetings and seeing how well you conducted them, and for the Nuvis, for what you did, you understood the spirit of what we were trying to accomplish. And that's really hard to do when you're coming in from the outside and you don't really get it. But you really, really got it. I mean, even to the comment of etching the, Lake Forest in the concrete. I mean, I wouldn't even have thought of that, but that was brilliant. So I just commend you for choosing Nuvis, first of all, and I commend you, Scott, for the way that you conducted the meeting, the respect that you gave to our veterans. You tied it all together. You did, I can't say enough, you did a fantastic job. So thank you for that. And I would just want to wish everyone a wonderful, blessed Thanksgiving.
Well, I attended the Marine Corps Ball. The 1st Law Enforcement Battalion, this year, the Marine Corps is celebrating their 242nd year of service to our nation. And the 1st Law Enforcement Battalion is our adopted law enforcement battalion from Pendleton. And it's just great to be around such men and women of honor and dignity that are willing to serve our nation and give the utmost for what we have here in America. I, too, got to commend the design of the Veterans Memorial at Veterans Memorial Park there. It's Scott, you guys did a wonderful job, and it's more than what I thought it was going to be. When I saw it, I was thoroughly pleased with it. I think the little flags that were very creative, folded up on top of each pilaster, and then the way you jumped on it and it came up with memorializing Lake Forest honor those that serve, etched in concrete down below. I think that was very quick thinking on your feet. So we're going to vote for you for something one day, because you'd be a great elected official. But thank you for your service to the city of Lake Forest. I know it's going to be beautiful. Thank you, Scott, Mr. Wasserman, for your involvement in leading the committee and keeping them within budget. And I got to say that anytime we put a budget out, it's sometimes hard, but without the tank, we kept with under $100,000 or so. Thank you. Thank you all, staff. Don't give up your little finger for nothing. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. I hope you enjoy it with friends, family, and neighbors. God bless you all, and God bless you this Thanksgiving. Close this meeting.